We were just doing the thing, and the door was open, and so he comes out and he turns and he looks at me. And like, as I'm seeing him in person now. Right? I just see him in music videos, I see him in everything. And, and obviously he's just a normal guy, but like I'm this young impressionable kid. I don't know that, and so he turns and sees me, and I'm like, I see like a gold aura, It's like when Charlie Murphy's explaining when he met like Rick James and stuff, right? Substance use and things like that, misuse of alcohol, right? And so I was just all over the place. And I think even leading up to that point, there was this theme, that theme of being the Indian kid where it's kind of like, a lot of the times as Punjabis, we're not authentic.
Yeah.
We would let people do things and we would agree to things because we just like thought of the external factors or whatever it was, right? And you kind of just go along with things.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another BTR podcast. Today, we're joined by another very special guest, a good friend of ours. So without further ado, let me introduce him. He's currently the partner at Sunsar Solutions and a part-time kinesiologist at Prosper Health. He was also one of the co-founders along with Ben and Pardeep, who we had on earlier at Fit Nation, where he was a fitness trainer, also a kinesiologist. He's also now a marathon runner, a triathlon athlete, and also working his way to possibly doing a full Ironman. Which is a longer triathlon, essentially. We're joined by Jas Johal. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How you guys doing?
It's been a while.
Yeah, man.
Looking good?
Thank you.
You look more professional than us.
I mean, it's crazy when you don't see people for a long time, right? And you see them and you're like, you start having flashbacks.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, man, I remember you.
Exactly. Oh, we got 3 OGs now. We gotta get all 3 done, right?
Yeah. I was actually thinking that today too. I'm like, this is the final.
The final Fit
final
Nation.
The final Fit Nation guy, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be nice to kind of add to everything.
Yeah. You also were, I guess no longer now, but we're part of the Nation Talk podcast.
That's right.
With Ben. So make sure everybody check that out because we'll allude some of the stories there, but he'll go into full details. In there, we'll put the link in the description below. Not sure if you're gonna do any other podcasts in the future, hosting.
Who knows, man?
Who knows, yeah.
But before we get right into it, we're gonna do some quick fire as always. So Joven will ask you some fun questions and see how it goes.
All right, man.
Favorite sport
to watch or play?
Oh, sorry. So not including running or training.
Yeah. Okay, not include what you do. Like favorite. We'll go. Just pick one both, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So favorite sport to play. Football, like flag football.
Flag football, yeah.
Yeah. And then favorite sport to watch. It's probably football as well, honestly. Yeah, I think it's probably football, yeah.
Favorite team growing up?
All sports. It doesn't
all
have to
sports?
Be. Or whatever sports you watch.
So in the early 90s when I watched hockey, I like bounce around between teams, but I think I was a Rangers fan when Gretzky was there. Then I was like a Pittsburgh fan for a bit. And then I stopped watching hockey. And for basketball, I would say, I was a Lakers fan when Shaq was there, right? And then after that, I think I switched and I just stopped. And then I picked a basketball team again in 2014 or 16. So I was a Celtics fan. But
that's the weirdest.
Switch from Lakers to Celtics. Exactly.
So you're players, guys. But
No, what happened is there was a huge period where I just stopped watching the sport.
Yeah.
So I was completely removed from it, and I didn't really know much about it. And then I kind of got back in through the influence of Pardeep Baines. He's kind of like, yo, you got to pick a team. And, I had enough criteria, so I picked a team. But those are the only ones I would say right now that I have, and those are the sports that I watch.
Yeah, so then...
Oh, Sooners fan and Patriots fan, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
For football.
Okay, so favorite players just you watched, I guess.
Favorite players that I watched, I really like watching Jaromir Jagr play hockey. He was a good player to watch. And then... football, I didn't have honestly, I don't think I had a particular player that I liked to watch. It was just like, it depended on the era. Sometimes there was like certain players that were like, I don't know, like Priest Holmes or right, and like in like Pittsburgh Steelers defense, Troy Polamalu, and like seeing some of those guys, and then seeing Brian Urlacher play linebacker for the Bears was really awesome. Those are some key ones that stood out. And then Eli Manning
Eli.
I always had this connection with Eli Manning.
And you're a
because I have an
Patriots
older
fan?
brother. Yeah, but I have an older brother, and my brother is a Colts fan, or was a Colts fan.
Yeah.
And he was a huge Peyton Manning fan. And so when Eli got drafted, it was kind of like, yeah, man, I'm the younger brother. So I just kind of, and that first season, I think they were like, they did so bad. And then they would make fun of me by calling me Eli because he was bad at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to win.
So you love to go with like rival. Like I guess Tom Brady and Eli are Super Bowl rivals.
Yeah.
But go that way instead.
Yeah.
Favorite athlete in general, like that you looked up to growing up. Like, and I guess running would be a big one in this one. But
Yeah.
who was that essentially for you?
Oh, man. Growing up, I don't really think there was like a particular athlete that I really kind of... when I was in track and field, then there was just like certain sprinters, I would say, that I looked up to. I just kind of looked up to the Canadian force that we had. Like, I'd watch some of Donovan Bailey stuff. And then where we trained, there was a guy that trained there, Robert Eisme. He was a part of the 4x1.
That's his trainer.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So Robert would train there, and then Robert had a few other people there. And then like I would watch Ben Johnson, like tapes, because he was before my time.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, those are like some of the athletes, but I never really had like a particular person. I feel like it kind of went in waves. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go favorite food.
Favorite food. Homemade or like eating out?
Whatever.
Doesn't matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Maybe both.
Honestly, right now my favorite is rajma and quinoa.
Yeah, because
that's like my go-to meal.
So
I love it.
yeah, because
Rajma and quinoa.
Yeah.
because you're vegan now. That's something which we'll go into later. So,
Yeah.
But what was it before? Like when you did eat meat and stuff, like that was your go-to.
You know, there was like this omelet that we would eat at this place in South Surrey, and like a breakfast dish used to be my favorite.
Yeah.
So some sort of omelet and then like sausage and stuff like that.
Favorite movie or movie series?
Favorite movie or movie series? Well, one of my favorite movies is Goodfellas, and I love the Godfather series as well. But most of these mob movies were usually the ones that I would watch a lot. And those go down in some of my favorites. And then American Gangster was really good too with Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
That was a really good movie.
And then favorite TV show?
First 48. I watch hours and hours of that. I was watching it yesterday. I think I watched like 2-3 hours yesterday as a marathon on TV.
Yeah.
It's the only show that I watch on television, and it's kind of the only reason that I continue to get cable or, have that instead of just exclusively streaming, right?
Yeah.
Favorite... Do you have a favorite Punjabi movie if you watch? Or do you watch any?
Do I have a favorite Punjabi movie? No. I don't think I do. I had a short stint where I watched like these new Punjabi movies that would come out for a little bit here and there, but it never really stuck.
And then favorite singer / rapper, Punjabi or English, whatever it is. Or both. Jay-Z and Nas would just be like those ones that I could say that since I started listening to hip hop, I still listen to them. Yeah.
So I've probably consumed their content like the most over the years, but I'm more of like I listen to a lot of older rock and roll, a lot of jazz music. Like I'll listen to classical music for hours when I'm reading and stuff like that. But like on the hip hop end, if I had to like J. Cole, Jay-Z, Nas, like that would be like the kind of assortment of some of the rappers that I continue to listen to. But yeah, that would be pretty much it.
No one really Punjabi? Or?
Oh yeah. For Punjabi, it's like Jazzy B obviously was one of my main like individuals whose content I consume the most in that realm. But since the last, I'd say 5 or so years, I don't really listen to much Punjabi. But I'll listen to Kirtan.
Yeah.
Right? My wife, she did a lot of Kirtan growing up and stuff. So we listen to a lot of Kirtan together sometimes. But Punjabi music, it's like every now and again, like, you know, there's new stuff that comes out. I don't think I listen to any of it.
Yeah,
like whatsoever.
For me, it's like if I'm at a hall party, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this sounds good. Let me see what it is. I'll put it.
Yeah.
Even because you guys were bumping Punjabi music all the time at
All the
Fandom
time,
in Asia.
all the
That's
time,
why.
Yeah, and so a lot of that music
Yeah.
was the music that I liked.
I
Yeah.
think one I remember that you liked was Manmohan Varas.
Yeah, because growing up as a kid, my dad listened to a lot of Manmohan Varas, and my dad is good friends with Debi. So like I just kind of that circle, and Debi wrote some of Manmohan Varas' songs back in the day and stuff like that. And then Pardeep and I were always into like some of these older artists and stuff.
Because he said Chamkila.
Yeah. So for me, it would have been like his Chacha and then Kuldeep Manik and a lot of I listened to hours and hours of that. But now when I listen to, if I'm listening to say Punjabi or Hindi, it's mostly like I listen to Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and stuff like that now. So like more Sufi or Kanwar.
I
listen to a lot of him. Really, you know, music's funny. Don't you find that it really depends on where you're at in your life and what's going on for what you're listening to? And for some stages, you'll be listening to a certain genre like crazy.
Yeah.
And then after, you're listening to something like else like crazy.
Yeah.
Like I got, you know how Spotify would give you that your year in review of all the songs? And like I remember on one of the years, just like I looked at it and I'm like, oh, you would never think that was my Spotify. And I'm like, holy smokes. It's like, you know, it's putting like Bach or like Miles Davis or like Jasmine, John Coltrane. I got up there. You're like, oh my God. So, holy smokes.
It's funny because whenever I'm driving, because like I drive a Corolla usually, and it doesn't have like an aux or anything, so I'm so used to like listening to like those FM radio channels, like Virgin Radio or like Sonic or whatever. So I had a phase where I'm just always listening to that. Then I go back to my sports, which is like Sportsnet 650 at the time, TSN 1040. Go back to it, but like now, like me and him, the reason why we asked the Punjabi movie question is like I think we watch more Punjabi movies than English movies. Unless it's like a big time English movie that comes out. Like, I mean, we're huge Fast and Furious fans, so we'll watch that.
And then Marvel.
Some Marvel, like he's bigger than I am in that, but like any big movie really will watch it, or if a trailer entices us. But with Punjabi movies, especially, so a lot of them are actually not like the same old love story thing. Like there's a lot of good historical ones, like Mastane with the same dresser came out. I think it's coming out on Chapal streaming.
And you guys don't live too far from the theater. Yeah,
exactly.
So the new ones.
I don't really go to theater. We don't really go to theaters anymore. That's the thing. For English movies, we might, but not as much for Punjabi, which I think we should technically. But like we and then music wise, like now it's just literally Punjabi music mainly. Like I am a huge Eminem fan. There are some like rap and stuff.
Eminem, I would listen to
like I'm a huge that was the one guy, was like Lil Wayne back in the day, but now I don't like Little Baby. Never probably heard a song. No. Like my cousin Jeevan, like he would probably, like when we're together driving, he would probably put on a song, whatever. I'll be like, what is this? Like, get this off my radio. Like, or off the car. But like, who are these people? And some of them are decent, but it's like it's always like a moody thing for sure. For sure. Okay, so before we actually get into it, so this is off camera we said that Pardeep wanted us to ask you a question, and you kind of alluded to it. So and you'll probably know where I'm going with it. You meeting Jazzy B, his chacha. He wanted to be. He's like, because we were asking him. I know you have to watch the pod still, but like just not spoiling too much of it. We asked him like, what's the perspective of being someone's relative who's that famous, right? Like, and because for us it's like different. Like you might get starstruck or whatever. So I asked him, have he's gotten ever starstruck with someone he's met through him? He's like, not really, but I get it. But he's like, he called you out, and he's like, the first time Jas Johal met my chacha at my house, because you got your brother you and his brother, like good friends, right? Was like at his house and he was starstruck. He's like, I've never thought I would see that, and it was hilarious. So expand on that. Like, how was that?
So basically, like I think it was the 8th grade or something. I went to India for like a relative's wedding, right? And at that time, so 8th grade for me, I don't even know what year that was. What, like 2003 or 2 maybe, right? So the early 2000s, just the turn of the millennium, right? And at the time, so you go to India, and like at the time, the way things worked was certain artists, it's just like once your stuff got traction, you were everywhere, right? And I got there, and Jazzy B's music was playing everywhere, and the sound was so cool and so interesting. And so I ended up buying a bunch of his CDs. My cousin, my Masi's son, he had a bunch of his CDs. So I started listening to his music, and you know, like this is the time of Discman and stuff. So I'm in India. I just have a CD player.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't even have others. Like now we have so many songs, right?
Yeah.
So it's like all I was doing was listening to that over and over again. And you're driving around the city and you're seeing like they would put his tapes in their dashboard. Like it was crazy. And so I come back from that trip. I'm listening to his music like crazy, and so now I'm like becoming a pretty big fan, right?
Yeah.
Because you're constantly hearing this person through your CD player or whatever, and that flight from India, like it's so long. So imagine listening to that just one CD, Tera Roop, over and over and over and over. So now I got like the lyrics memorized and everything, and this is so cool. And so when I get back, I kind of already knew some of his family, but I didn't know that I knew them. Right. And then I kind of, you know, I knew of Jeg. We kind of knew each other from soccer and stuff, but we kind of started becoming tighter, became closer. And then finally we were like, yo, we had to do a project together. We were in some class together.
Yeah.
So now this is like the 9th grade or something, I think. And I'm at his house. I'm sitting in the computer room. We're sitting there. We're doing the thing. And I guess his chacha was over at that time. Right. And his room was like right next to us. Right. And so I guess he comes out, and I didn't really know that he was home. We were just doing the thing, and the door was open. And so he comes out, and he turns, and he looks at me. And like, I'm seeing him in person now. Yeah. I just see him in music videos, I see him in everything. And, you know, and obviously he's just a normal guy, but like I'm this young impressionable kid. I don't know that. And so he turns and sees me, and I'm like, I see like a gold aura, you know? Like, yeah, it's like when, you know, Charlie Murphy's explaining when he met like Rick James and stuff, right? Yeah. And so anyways, he turns and he sees he's got the gold chain on, I think. And I was just like, wow, right? And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, hi. And I kind of said hi, got up, said hello, and I sat down. And I think I was staring into space, and Jag was doing the thing. Jag looks over and he was like, yo, man, you okay? Right? Because like, I guess he was asking me something and I wasn't responding or something that. So, yeah, I guess that's what it means to be starstruck.
Yeah.
But that was quite the moment. And then, you know, after that, obviously, I got to know him at a deeper level.
Once Fit Nation started.
Yeah. Then we had lunch that day. No, even before Fit Nation started.
Yeah.
In 2009, I actually got to stay with him for like 2 weeks. I was in England, so we went out there. I went to Europe for a month, and I was in Italy for like 2 weeks with one of his other nephews. Yeah. Right. So I knew Jag guys, and then like that's their dads or brothers. Yeah. I also knew his sister's kids as well, right? And so I was with them, and we were in Europe. And then when we were in England, he kind of like, yeah, man, he just kind of like took care of us for the time we were with him and stuff. And he basically, I got to tag along for what it was like to be a part of the band and everything. So we were just rolling with him. And at the time, I thought this whole rockstar thing was so cool. And I was like, man, this is so cool. He gets to do this. It's like an awesome job, blah, blah, blah. And all it took was 2 weeks of hanging out with him, just for 2 weekends. Just seeing 2 weeks of his schedule. Not even the full schedule, just the weekend schedule. So not including going to the recording studios and stuff like that. Just the weekend schedule. And bro, it was insane. And I was like, I want no piece of this. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know who would want any piece of this. It's like, it seems so glamorous on like, you know, when you see the shows and everything. Outside looking in, it seems like it's the most glamorous job. But like, just to give you guys a bit of an example, I'll just explain like a rough 48 hours for him at that time in 2009. Like so we woke up, and then, you know, the drivers come grab us. We're at a hotel. He picks us up. We're all ready. And then from there, he heads to a wedding where he's doing the reception. Yeah. And in England, it's during the day. Yeah. Right. So he does that. And so we're in, like, I don't even know what city we're in. We're in there. Which first, you know, you're sitting in the green room, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes out, and then he would kind of let us just kind of walk up on the stage and just stand in the back. And I get to watch from the back, and I get to see all the people cheering, whatever. And it was just an amazing experience, right? I'm like 19 years old. Like, I'm still a kid. Yeah. And so I see that. And then we get out of there, and then it's like, you know, you got to exit quickly, and then you're like getting into the car, and there's literally people chasing you at times, and you get in, close the doors, and then we left there, and then I think we went to Manchester, and then he had to do the Manchester Mela, and at the time he was the headliner, so he's the last one that goes on. So where we were in Birmingham to go to Manchester was like a couple of hours, so we now drove up there, and then he let us just kind of, it was like a Mela there, so you guys go do your thing. We just kind of hung out, had some fun. And then eventually he went on. And then we went back on stage, kind of watched him do his thing. And then now it's like, and then just seeing the fans and everybody just going crazy. Like it was amazing. The energy that brings us on stage is insane. And so after that, we got out of there, got into the van, but like the van was just in the back, so by the time we get in, everybody can see. So then that's when the mob would come in. This was the first time I saw like a mob coming up, and then it's like slapping onto the van thing and everything. And I'm just looking around, and I'm like, this is insane. Yeah, like this is just like you know, you're an accountant, right? So it's like a Monday morning for you is like you walk into KPMG or wherever you work in your office. This is his office. Yeah. Right? And I just find it that like you have to stay cool, calm, collected and everything. We left there, I think it was 11 at night. And then they took him and then he had to go shower up, get dressed, blah, blah, blah. We're with the manager at his office or something. And then like into the wee hours of the night by like 3-4 in the morning, now we're back in the car. No one slept. And we're driving to London because we're going to get on a bullet train and he has a show at Paris the next day. Yeah. Wow. Right? And so he just did 3 shows. Yeah. And so now he's about to do a 4th. And we haven't even, like, it's just the weekend. Yeah. So we drove and I kind of passed out in the car on the drive to London, which was a couple of hours or whatever. Yeah. Got there, got on the train, 2-hour train, passed out there, got out. They took us to the hotel. They fed us lunch or whatever. We got to go upstairs, pass out for maybe 2 hours, got up again, dressed up again. Now they took us to the venue. And then it was a full-on show again. Yeah. Right? And then after that, it's like you have dinner or whatever, go to sleep, wake up early in the morning, drive back to the station, take the train to London, drive from London back to Birmingham. And now maybe he's going to get a few days or something like that. Right? Yeah. And so I was just so like, holy smokes. Man.
Yeah, and now throw in movies now because like a lot of the musicians, like himself, he has a couple movies later on too.
So it's a lot of hard work. Yeah. And you know, when it's like artistic space, like what kind of job security is there too, right? Yeah. So it's like you just always have to be bringing out great content. You got to keep releasing stuff. So you got to work really.
And then like side businesses too, in case something happens. Yeah, because this whole the fame thing, it's like, you know, growing up, we're like, oh, let's be an athlete, like what LeBron's, Kobe, or like, you know, Daniel Sedin, Henrik Sedin, these guys are like, they're playing for a living. Look, we're playing sports outside. Like, and then when you get older, you look into the behind the scenes, like how they have to get up like at 4 a.m, do like a whole workout, watch what they eat, can't like, you know, eat whatever they want, whenever they want type of thing. So it's like, it's insane that way too. It's like, you know, for us, maybe this is the best choice because we can still do a bunch of other
things. But like
things.
even like, so practice squad NFL, they make about 14 grand American a week. Yeah. Right. So it's like you're just on the practice squad and that's how much you're making too. Right. But like, you're still expected to deliver at that level. Right. Like this is your job now. Yeah. You're pretty much practicing football. Part of it, making sure like, you know, if someone gets injured and whatever else that you're there. But yeah, man, super interesting of like perceptions that we hold of certain things. What it actually ends up being.
Because the starstruck thing, and I mentioned it to Pardeep as well, it was like, because I saw him at Fit Nation I think once or twice, but I was like, in the middle stage, I'm like, okay, I can't really ask for an autograph, but we're working out here, or whatever the case was. I think he actually visited our school. I think we have the same alma mater in high school, I think Tuanuas, right? Tuanuas, yeah. So because he came to visit when I was in grade 10, which was like 2012, I want to say. He was just giving like, you know, just, I think the Punjabi class brought him in and he was just giving us like how you try to chase your dreams, stuff like that. And even I don't think I ended up handshaking him after. I think only the Punjabi class did. But yeah, it's like I always wonder how I would react to that, because like obviously the Jazzy B one, I guess I saw him, I didn't shake his hand. I was like, hey, he's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, oh, how's it going? Because I'm not trying to be that guy either. Like if I see someone eating dinner, I'm like, I don't want to be that guy that shows up and be like, some people do that. Like on the flip side, like LeBron was here last summer, I believe, and then apparently one of my coworkers, my friends at work, he saw him because he was just down the street, I guess, or a couple of 1 or 2 blocks down. The hotel there where we were working, and he's like, I just saw him outside, and I was like, what, did you go up to him? He's like, I couldn't really, because he's like, he was about to leave or something.
Dude, I was having dinner with my wife and you know, Gurdeep, my friend, and his girlfriend, and we were sitting across from Ron Artest. Yeah. So like we're sitting there, and literally where you're sitting, that's where Ron Artest was, and this is where I was. Yeah. And I didn't even recognize him when he sat down. My wife did. She doesn't even watch sports. Like, isn't that Ron Artest? And so, and then I looked and I'm like, yeah, that is. And so the whole time I'm like troubled, because like at the time, no one went up to him in that restaurant. No one went up to him. I don't even know if anybody knew who he was. For some, like, but I wanted to, like, I'm like, just watch Malice in the Palace and stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to ask all these nerdy questions or whatever, right? But he's there with a friend and he's having his dinner.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even say anything. I didn't go up after. I'm like thinking, should I go up and get a picture or not? And then I just left it alone.
Because like, you don't know when you're gonna get that opportunity ever again.
Yeah,
in that case.
But at the same time, you want to like respect the privacy as well, because they get it
All
very
the time.
limited. There's
Yeah,
very
like,
limited for them.
Like Dad honestly gave a lot of hockey players, because a taxi driver, he gave a lot of like Canucks players or the visiting players. I think he gave Justin Bieber a drive once or something. Obviously, Dad doesn't know who Justin Bieber is. He's like, oh, he heard of him, obviously.
I have autographed cards from Don Cherry and Ron McLean.
Yeah,
because my dad picked them up in the taxi. And I got 2 cards and they're signed to my name or whatever. And then my dad picked up Brian Burke when he was the general manager. And at the end of that ride, Brian Burke got us 4 tickets to a Canucks game against the New Jersey Devils. And he kind of was like, he's like, here, take your kids to a hockey game. But some pretty cool stuff that can happen in that realm.
All right, let's get right into your journey. That was a fun story for sure. That was actually like, it's insane to see like firsthand what it's like to do that.
I just wanted to share that.
I
think some of the listeners would probably enjoy,
so they know what it's like.
Stories. And also, like, I find that sometimes the best part of certain podcasts is like these stories.
100%.
That was a good story.
Because like that's why we want to like label out your journey, then get into the fun stuff after.
Let's do it.
So off the bat, we know you through as a fitness trainer / I guess kinesiologist. You were my mom's, I guess, for kinesiologist for a little bit when we were all there, which we'll get into in a second. So how did the journey start? Why did you want to become a fitness trainer? Fitness coach? How did you get into fitness? And did you play any other sports growing up that you considered maybe I wouldn't play this more?
So basically, to be honest, guys, I wasn't an athletic kid growing up, and like my brother took all the shine in that realm, and he was just a good soccer player and he played good in that. And my dad is one of the founders of Vancouver United, and so basically growing up like that, at the club, have the tournaments every week, and all my cousins were great at soccer, and I just sucked. And the thing is I didn't try at it at at your formative 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. You gotta like get that down, right? Because like there's gonna be a touch and a skill that you'll get at that age that if you skip that age and come back at like 9, 10, 11, by the time everyone's trying to play Metro at 14, you're not gonna cut it, right? And so that's kind of what happened to me. And then what happened, and my dad, he's like super athletic. He was always going to the gym since 1991, right? Like very like we were raised where it's like, you're basically do good in school and be athletic. That's it. That's all I ask of you. Like you don't hang out with the wrong crowd. Don't do drugs, etc. Obviously, right? It goes without saying. And just focus on like you want to have a good physical shape, right? And you want to be healthy, and then you want to partake in sports and command respect. And so basically, one thing led to another. I was always resistant to the whole athletic part of the upbringing, and I kind of focused on school, and eventually he threw me in track and field at Universal Track Club with Jasbir Desange, and his brothers at the time started it. And so it was in track and field I got introduced to weightlifting. So I learned about lifting weights for the purpose of getting faster at track. And so the track was a non-negotiable for my dad. It wasn't a sport that I wanted to do. He just put me in it. It was like, you have to do this, and that's it. And so my brother was in it, and my brother was dealing with weight issues. Eventually, he lost a whole bunch of weight. And then, first he's excelling at soccer. Now he starts excelling at track, right? And he's doing 800. He's competing. He can actually get like third place and stuff. He ran a 2:06 800 meter. So like that first lap, he clocked it at 55 seconds. And the next lap was, whatever it was. But he was on his way to being, like he could have been pretty like decent and maybe ran at university or whatever. And so stayed in track and field, did the weightlifting thing. And so we're kind of athletic. I kind of shied away from soccer. Soccer was one of those things that where now it's like, I'm not really a starter. So I kind of just tag along for the practices, and I'm at the practices and I'm helping guys out and whatever else. And I'm playing scrimmage and whatever, but I don't actually play on a team. So like that kind of shut off there. And then now I'm like getting out of high school. I like this track and field thing with like the weightlifting and all that. And I learned that, there's a thing you can study. So sports science or something is essentially the study of this stuff. And so I had a job at a vitamin store at the time. And I was at a vitamin store and I started researching the kinesiology program. It's called Human Kinetics at the time at UBC. Started looking at everything. And at that point, it was the whole, you're going to go to UBC, you're going to get a BSc, you're going to become a doctor or an eye doctor or a chiropractor or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like preordained path, right? Like, this is it. This is why we came to Canada, is so you can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And so eventually I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I saw that. So I told my parents about it. And in the beginning, my dad was a little upset because they didn't understand it. And so my dad was set on me wanting to be some type of doctor or something. Yeah. And so eventually I was like, you know what, you could do kinesiology. So then I entered that program and started studying kinesiology. And then the track and field part was like done by grade 11. So by grade 12, I just focused on weightlifting. Yeah. So now I'm getting more exposed to like the bodybuilding.com, the magazines, the vitamins, the creatine, all that, bro science, everything, right? So like I'm now living that. I actually gained 20 pounds from when I ran track in grade 11 to when I started grade 12 and I was weightlifting. I gained 20 pounds in the summer naturally. Yeah. No steroids, nothing. And so I came back and I started to identify more with this whole weightlifting thing. And then now you're kind of going into kinesiology. And then I started dealing with back issues and like all sorts of issues. And so my first 2 years, I wasn't very active. Continued to keep studying kinesiology. Had moments where I didn't know where I was going with it. Yeah. Like it was kind of like, I didn't know what to do. But then there was always that, well, I really like this weightlifting stuff and I can train people. So I was like, so then I learned in the program that there's like strength and conditioning coaches, right? And so I was like, I could be a strength and conditioning coach. And so kind of looked at that, thought about maybe I should be working with soccer teams or something, kind of entertained that, did a little bit of work in that. And then eventually it kind of landed where Ben had, done his BCRPA, started training people and said, hey, I have this idea, like, I'm going to call it Fit Nation. And, you should jump on board and stuff and we can build it together. So then by the last year that I was about to go out, that started to be a thing. Yeah. So then it was kind of like, okay, maybe I'll do this. And so I started training people my like summer before my last semester at UBC. So I had like a little book of clients. And then even my last semester, I was still training clients and I was doing bookkeeping for a cousin. So it was like kind of like the last couple of years, it was like, let's see where things go. It's either I'm going to do some type of business, maybe go do an MBA, or I'll go do this. Yeah. So then eventually it just led to me having clients. The first year was really bad for me. Dealt with a lot of like mental health issues, depression and things like that. And then kind of worked my way out of there. And then 2013 started seeing clients in my parents' garage. And at the time, Ben seeing his own clients, Pardeep seeing his clients. And so, we're using the same brand name and stuff. I started driving a taxi part-time. Yeah. So I do that once a week. So that kind of, kept things going. And then 2014, we were like, all right, let's sign a lease and get like a storefront location and centralize everything. Yeah. And so Ben was training people out of his backyard. I was training people out of mine. But then I started moving some of my appointments because they were coming from Surrey to his backyard. And then started seeing people there. And still this whole thing the whole time now, it's still, strength and conditioning, personal training. Then it's like we're opening up in September 2014. I got a message by a friend. She says, hey, do you do ICBC claims? I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? I had no idea. We had no idea. Yeah. And so I looked into it. I'm like, what the hell? Like they'll send us checks for working with these claims. Yeah. Right. And you just have to do X, Y, and Z. So I figured out what it was. And then eventually I started doing kinesiology, ICBC active rehab for whenever we would get that, and then train clients. And then as we kept growing as a company, and then ICBC's things started changing and stuff, and I started developing myself as a kinesiologist, because there was a point where the three of us looking at each other, we're like, okay, right now we're all essentially doing the same thing. Yeah. But it's like, you're a kinesiologist, you have this ability, and you can see ICBC, we can't. Maybe you should focus on that. So then I kind of started putting more focus into that. And so started off, it was only like, 5-10% of the people coming in was from there, or the income was from the kin stuff. And then it started to grow. I started to go to different seminars and workshops and develop my skills. And then we made a big jump, Ben and I, when we scaled the business. We moved from that small unit 111 to the bigger one. Yeah. And so we did that. And then kind of really started revving up the active rehab and the ICBC stuff. And so, yeah, man, that was my story for how I ended up there. And then we scaled it, and we hired other kinesiologists and people, so now they got a good team there. And then eventually it was time for me to leave, and that was basically that part for me. And then I kind of left there, and now I do kinesiology where I do it twice a week, and I subcontract at a clinic, so at Prosper Rehab. And I basically am giving more attention and developing more of my entrepreneurial side. So I kind of did a pivot and went into a different industry, which we could talk about in a bit.
Because when we brought in Amr Mandir, and he's a physio, and his original plan was to do team-based, like you said, he could try to work with like the soccer teams, whether it be local clubs or eventually maybe Whitecaps or whatever. And he said when he was in England and did it, he's like, it was a whole different side that like I'd rather prefer to do private practice, because like you could hear personal stories, everyone's different, so the challenge of fixing this issue might be different from fixing this person's issue. So he's like, that's why, even though he did go back and do the New Zealand women's team, he's like he still kind of is leaning towards the private practice for that reason. Is that ultimately like when you gain the experience from doing with the kinesiology at Fit Nation, is like this is more fun, plus you're with Pardeep and Ben at the time, so it's like, and then all of us, like whoever, all your other clients, all of us are there, so it's like a big family party vibe too while you're working out. So that's like the main reason why you stayed on that instead of going into like sports teams.
No, I would say like after the commitment was made that we're building this brand, then it was about doing everything to grow the brand and to to increase the profits and so forth. And so when we would basically identify opportunity in the marketplace. Right. So now if you look at the marketplace, show me a gym. Well, now there's some examples, but there really wasn't, where you could go to a gym and they have kinesiologists there, and you can do your active rehab there. A lot of the active rehab was being done in clinics. Right? Like it's clinical space. So you're like challenging the norm by pushing for more S&C, more strength and conditioning. And ultimately the research always leads to a lot of these injuries are getting fixed from that stuff. Right? You can do physio and stuff in conjunction. Just doing physio on its own isn't going to make you any stronger. Like you're never going to get rid of a tendinopathy just by seeing a physio. You're eventually gonna have to load the tendon. Right? You're eventually gonna have to get stronger.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's what I loved about what we were bringing. Was that whole edge where it was like we're rehab, training is rehab is training. So I learned that from Charlie Weingroff. We kind of adopted that sort of thing, and we wanted people to see that rehab isn't supposed to be like super remote. Like you're gonna eventually work yourself up to the load and to strength training. So I would say that facet of it was the part where I was like, this is it, rather than right off the bat for my career, like how some people, you just go to a clinic and you just start working out of a clinic and that's it kind of thing, right? I did it the other way around, where and so the good thing was, because I was a shareholder in that business, no one was like overseeing me in the sense of telling me what I could or couldn't do. So I just took all the seminars I wanted to do, and I eventually found that back pain and low back pain was one of the things that, like, you can't just, like, sometimes even physios and chiros were struggling with it. They didn't figure out. So what I did was I just found, like, okay, who's one of the main people that works really well with it? And it was Dr. Stuart McGill. I did all his seminars, just did his system, figured out everything. Eventually went to Ontario, did like a specialized course with him, had dinner with him at his house, came back, and then kept focusing on that. And then, it's like you identify, you find opportunity, and then you kind of go after it. And that's what that was.
So when you were a fitness coach, and this is the same question I might ask every guest, because they all have some type of coaching experience, or in Jeevan's case, being a player, from player's perspective of a coach, how much did, like you mentioned, like you did a lot of research and training yourself. How much do you think that a coach should be learning on the fly training, whether it be from their clients, right? Because, for example, I remember when I joined Fit Nation, the first month I set that record, and you were in shock, like, how the hell are you getting all this protein? Because I'm vegetarian. And I told you, I'm like, oh, it's usually these, like, the Ives products, for example, because that has it. And then you're like, oh, and then I was like, you learned that from me in a sense. So, like, how much is it, like, back then you guys didn't have running, but now you're a runner, right? And it's like, it's not always about strength training. Like you could incorporate the running and stuff like that. How much do you have to adapt to that? And like, how much do you think coaches should be learning on the fly and not be like my way, highway type thing?
Man, honestly, the best coaches they're the learn-it-alls, not the know-it-alls.
You never want to be a know-it-all. If you find a coach where they just keep doing the same old stuff, they've never they don't take courses on like a yearly basis. You never hear them going to seminars. Never hear them kind of instituting new things or trying to learn. That's not a coach to me. Like you have to keep learning. Like even from the time that I got out of school to now, you know how much has changed. Like a lot of stuff changes. Research is always coming out, so you have to keep adapting to that. And you can't. Yeah, man, like reading up on the stuff regularly, listening to podcasts, going to the seminars, investing in going to the seminars. Like we made big investments in me going to a lot of these workshops, and they were expensive workshops, but I did it, and I kept trying to learn more. And that was the only reason why I was able to help people to the degree that I was able to help them. And then I learned from them as well, because I'd apply certain things. And a lot of the times, you know, doing a project and saying hypotheticals and this is how it would work out is so much easier than when you actually get someone that comes in and there's different presentation of different things, and then you got to use different sorts of systems and so forth. You can't do that just by stopping, stopping the whole learning thing. So for me, it's usually a big red flag if you're not really regularly reading, or you're not you're not going to take courses. You're just kind of stuck in your ways. I think there's an expiry on that.
Have you had any coaches like that in your past, or know people that were like that? And you're like, damn, I'm gonna stop going to you because this is what,
No,
in your personal experience.
Honestly haven't worked with too many coaches myself.
Even when you were playing soccer growing up, or track and etc.
Yeah. So at that time, I never thought too deep into it.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I obviously hadn't formulated this thought process. I just blindly followed. People and kind of what they do. But in order to figure out some of these things, you would have to know people that are deeper level, right? So I can't really say if I've ran into certain people where it was kind of like, oh man, like I know when I was getting coached by the two brothers, like the one that went on to be more successful obviously was the one that looked like he was doing more research and so forth, and the other one really wasn't. The other one was just a great athlete himself, and he was just relying on his past and like what he knew and what the things that they did to him before, right?
The point for that is like, to be successful, you got to know that like you can't stop, right? There's not a point where like, okay, this is enough. No. Because like there's so much change, like you said, like you got to keep going at one point.
If you see that with people and you're around them, right? Like you want to get away from that, right? Like complacency has no place, for me anyways, right? So it's like, we're going to keep pushing. And it's like when you start seeing complacency, it's like, no, man, can't do that.
Yeah, like there's a reason why. And Pardeep brought it up too. Is like Bill Belichick and Greg Popovich. These guys are still coaches, and whereas like some of the older guys that come back get fired pretty quick. Yeah. For example, like the Urban Meyer. Well, he also has like other issues with it. But like guys like Stan Van Gundy tried to come back and coach a young New Orleans Pelicans team, got fired within a year because stuck in his old ways type of thing. So there's that too.
It's an art form, man. Like when you learn about the great coaches and like Phil Jackson and those guys, like it's a completely different game, man. They were learning, always learning. You always got to keep improving yourself too, right? Yeah. Because it goes beyond the learning part too. Like just like a deeper sort of thing. Like they had, Phil Jackson was like the Zen master, right?
Yeah.
So it went beyond basketball. If you think about it, it went beyond basketball. And I think that those are the great coaches too. Like even like Pradeep, like you look at, he has that edge too, right? Like it's not just the, hey, we're going to do squats or this and that. It's more about, hey, let's be present. Let's do this. Let's do that. And blah, blah, blah. Right. And so I find like those extra features, that desire to continue to keep learning, the desire to, what comes with learning also is challenging what you kept doing. Yeah. So sometimes people identify with that and it comes to be part of their ego. And when you have to turn around and stop doing that, they think that it's like a hit at their ego. Yeah. Right? So it's like if research came out saying, oh, you shouldn't do this or blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, no, I'm stuck in my ways. I don't want to do it. You take it as like a personal shot at you kind of thing. And I find that in the world of science, you can't be like that. Science is all about doing things, proving things right, proving things wrong, right? You have a hypothesis, test it out, A/B test. That's it. Should be no emotions involved.
I'm reading listening because I like Audible, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Mm-hmm. And so like if you're taking that into a life perspective, it's like you're changing your values because like you're you had this one value that like, got you this far. But then now the world's changing, everything's changing. You gotta change that value too in order to get better.
Keep adapting.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna before we get into your marathon journey and then your entrepreneurial side of things.
Yeah.
You mentioned mental health. You were going through something before Fit Nation became official for you.
Yeah.
And you also, listening to the Nation Talk podcast, had mental health around the time we were, I guess, at Fit Nation, after we left Fit Nation.
Yeah.
Because you dealt with a divorce, if you want to get into that. So the big question for me is like Punjabi community and the mental health, right? Because you've been obviously part of it. You've seen people say things. Then you're like, you live it, and you're like, oh, damn. Yeah. So what were, like, how'd you go through stuff? Like, what was the stuff that you went through that was like, okay, how do I cope well with this? Mm-hmm. And like ultimately the divorce, how that caused issues, and then stuff like that.
Yeah, I was basically like, I'd seen a psychiatrist or somebody, I think in and around 2012 or so, and I was like formally diagnosed and told that I had depression, and at the time, and then I have ADHD, I had generalized anxiety disorder, OCPD, which is like kind of like OCD, and so they kind of wrote all these things, and I just didn't know what to do. And the pharmacological way of doing things, you just go on antidepressants and stuff like that. I didn't want to do that, so like making the transition out of university into work life was really tough for me. And my grandfather had passed away in 2009 as well, and he was kind of like a primary caregiver, so it was almost like a father, right? And so you're trying to deal with that, and so basically confused, didn't know what to do, and eventually things just started to mellow out, and it just kind of everything started to go in order. Didn't really do anything in particular other than maybe exercising, life circumstances changed. But the psychiatrist really messed me up. He said this one thing. He's like, with your family history, the way it runs in your family, from what you've told me, and all these other things, you're the type of person that essentially needs to be on Cipralex for the rest of his life in order to be normal or to experience things normally or whatever. I was like, what the hell? That sounds pretty messed up, right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
It's like guys telling you man, you don't really stand a chance. You need these synthetic drugs to enjoy life and so forth. So I never went back to that guy, and I told my GP too. And so eventually things mellowed out, got out of that phase, and the work thing starts to get better and so forth. It's challenging in our community too, because a lot of your self-worth is tied to what you do, right? If you're not doing the right job or something like that, family treats you differently. People look at you differently. If you were to just sit at home every single day and your parents came home every single day, saw you on the couch, they'd say some pretty mean things, right? Yeah. And if you said, hey, you know what, I don't want to take part in this whole capitalist thing, I just want to sit at home and blah blah blah, you'd never hear the end of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm a young kid, and I'm dealing with this loss and everything, and then eventually things kind of get better, and I'm still not dealing with things properly. And then it's now I'm about to get married, and I have these issues, and kind of everything moved really quick, right? I was seeing someone, and then boom, you're not even really dating for that long, all of a sudden the parents meet and all that, blah blah blah, just boom 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 boom. And so that's when I started that year of when I was about to head into all of that, I started seeing a counselor. I was introduced to a counselor by somebody. So then I was seeing that person, and I'm thinking that this person's gonna give me the tools and everything, and hypothetically it's when you're married you start checking off all these boxes and you start to feel better, but that wasn't the case. Eventually what happened is the mental health was a key thing, just up and down throughout the course of the marriage and stuff, substance use and things like that, misuse of alcohol, right? And so I was just all over the place. And I think even leading up to that point, there was this theme, that theme of being the Indian kid, where it's kind of a lot of the times as Punjabis, we're not authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would let people do things, and we would agree to things because we just thought of the external factors or whatever it was, right? And you kind of just go along with things. And I can for a fact say this to anybody listening, that if you're at a stage in your life, you're going through that. Sometimes your parents are making decisions for you or whatever. It's going to keep going on to a certain point. Then you're going to hit a shit show, okay? And then because the universe is going to keep tossing these things at you.
Yeah.
And the universe is going to test you.
Yeah.
Are you authentic? Are you actually doing what you truly want to do? And so once inauthenticity leads on for a certain period of time, a whole slew of things will happen until you start to take control. And so, the mental health was like crazy. Everything was going all over the place. And then I had this drinking thing. And then, my ex-wife and I at the time, we separated. And so that was where I started to see some clarity. I got out of that space, moved back in with my parents, stopped drinking and stuff, right? Because the other thing is like this substance was so prevalent in my daily or weekly or monthly living, right? And so I got out of there, and mind you, throughout the course of the marriage, I'm seeing the counselor. Right now, I've gotten separated, and I'm still seeing the counselor.
Yeah.
So this counselor seen me before I got married,
yeah.
while I was married, and now I'm exiting a marriage kind of thing, right? And so moved back home, and then really started to try to look within and start meditating, started kind of, seeing the counselor more regularly, and then just trying to get everything back together. And that's when it was through the reflection of things, I started to find myself in areas where it felt from the inside I wanted to make certain decisions, but then I'm like, if I make that decision, that's going to be such a hard decision, right? And so like obviously like getting divorced is one of those things, right? Because in our community, it's so much easier to just stay together.
Yeah,
you're gonna avoid so much. You're gonna avoid so many issues, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, internally, I just kept having this feeling where it was like, okay, you know what, man, like, you have to do what you really feel that you think is the right thing. And I thought that just it wasn't the right thing for me. And so that dealt with that. And, it was really tough. And I turned to, like, that's where my connection with Sikhi started to grow even more. I found that I used to do like Jabji Sahib part when I was a kid, up into just one party of it.
Yeah.
And then now it's like a theme in people's lives too. Like it kind of, you have this connection with Sikhi and then it goes away.
Yeah.
And then it comes back.
It's going to come back, yeah.
And then it's like, that's exactly how it works, right? I didn't know that. And so it's kind of like, now I'm going through it and now it really starts to come in. And now it's even helping me more with my focus. And my brother's living at home and he's kind of like, yo, can you coach me? I want to do a marathon. And so I agreed. I quickly realized, well, it's going to be kind of hard coaching him, unless I'm running with him.
Yeah.
So then I just started running with him, and that started to be a part of my routine too. So then I started doing things where I started waking up early in the morning, started doing pot, started listening to the pot, and then, running, and then leading to some of these endurance things, and then changing my diet, right? And that's what it led to eventually being plant-based and stuff. So I had to make so many changes in my life. And as I'm going through that, I'm seeing a counselor. And so I saw her for up until a certain point. And then it was kind of like, you know what, now I feel like I have all the tools, and started moving forward. But basically, you make really tough decisions. You're going to weather a storm. But to be quite honest, when it's time to make tough decisions, you cannot seek validation from anybody.
Yeah. Because personal story of mine was, like you said, like, are we doing this to make others happy? Comparing yourself to your friends and cousins and family members, because like obviously I'm doing accounting and wasn't totally enjoying it, but I still got it through, right? And there's something like, at the end of the day, I look at my mom and dad, they sacrifice so much for us that like I have to do this for them. That's in my head too, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but at the same time, like, this is where having a great relationship with your parents helps. Because when we started this podcast, Joven and I were talking about this for like a year and a half, and those of you guys probably have seen how I started story. We mentioned it there as well. So just briefly, he was ready to go. Like, he was more on the like, okay, yeah. And then in my head, I'm like, I'm turning 26, turning 27 this year. Yeah. I did all this school for accounting. I have to do the CPA now. What's the point of me going this far? Yeah. Mom wants me to do it. And, well, she's saying that because like obviously like you're already this far, you do it. And I'm like, I took a year off of everything. Like, I finally graduated, did my BBA, took a year off. I was working where I work right now, and I'm like, I just don't want to do it with school anymore, right? Yeah. Got into CPA, forced myself to start, right? Because everybody's asking me, when are you going to start? Like that factors in your head, messes up with you. You're like, okay, let's start it. Did the first core 1 course, did it, and I'm just like, okay, like I thought I was doing well in terms of like the assignments. Exam comes, struggle, right? Failed. And then I'm like, okay, well, I have to retake this now. Meanwhile, I'm just complaining to him. I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like, he was my go-to complain person.
Yeah.
Because like he's the only one that I just talk to about like it sucks, right? Even around the house, like here, I'm just walking around like I'm stupid. I can't do this. I'm so stupid. And this guy's like, bro, shut up. You're doing like one of the hardest courses in the world. Obviously, it's gonna be tough, right? And at that time, I was like so done with school. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to do accounting anymore. Yeah. This was my true passion, sports. Talking to the guests like yourself, stuff like that, and try to make this a thing. In my head, I'm like, I'm way too old for this. What are our other cousins are gonna say or friends are gonna say? Yeah. And then eventually, mom guys went to India, and some external factors happened that opened my eyes, type of thing. Like kind of like how you were saying, like a relative of ours, his dad passed away, and one of the healthiest guys I know, right? He ran marathons, he did an Ironman. Yeah. Manager at work got let go, and stuff like that. And I'm like, that moment where you're like, all right, like that light bulb actually you hear that metaphor, you see it in TV shows, and that actually hits. That happened to me. It's like that realization. I come home, he's about to leave for a soccer game. I was like, all right, you want to do it? And at first he was a little confused, and I'm like, no. And then I said it again, and he realized it. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And then this is where I'm like, okay, I want to do this, but I don't want to do it behind my parents' back. Talk to my mom and dad, very understanding. She's like, yeah, if you don't like it, don't. Talk to like a couple of other relatives, and here we are, right? Like, it's like exactly, to your point, it's like you have to have a conversation. Like you understand that your parents sacrificed all this for you, but that doesn't mean you ruin your own mental. Yeah. Because I was like mentally struggling before I joined Fit Nation. Same thing. I'm like, I was mentally struggling until I started working out again. Yeah. And then for your case too, like Punjabi person and a divorce, it's like not unheard of, but like back when it was like a sin essentially.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like,
right.
It's like, how are you? Why are you getting a divorce? You also do this. It
makes everything messy, right? Because and like you got your friends, and they've now like it's gonna be tough. And like it's just it causes a lot of issues, right? And so some people see that, and so they're just like they like. Do you know you're going to come back here again? Like, do you know if you're going to come back here again? This may be the only time we're ever here.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? So it's like, do you want to do what you want to do in this lifetime, or do you want to dictate it by other people, right? Yeah. And so, like, like, there's always, like, I wrote about it in a newsletter recently on my thing, and, like, it's just like, are you, like, you're going to let other people make your decisions, you're going to make them yourself. Yeah. But when you stay authentic and true, the universe will start lining things up for you. Right, like we have irrational fears in our minds of everything, right? Like speaking to the CPA thing, and even in my situation, like I left, or like at the top of this year, I left Fit Nation, but I've been doing that for a decade. Yeah. Right, like you build something up, you're self-employed, like people dream of that, right? Making decent money, everything, and it's like you're gonna walk away from that, right? Now it's like how long is it gonna take you to get back to that level of what you were at? Yeah. Right? And how are you gonna do that? There's so many things. And the human mind's just going to keep fucking going. Exactly, right? But you'll never truly explore your true potential if you stay restricted within the confines of, that the insane lunatic in your head, right? Like we got this is Uncle Cook. He's like an uncle of ours who passed away from England, and he said, he would basically say that once you can become friends with that lunatic in your head, you're going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, at least let me try this, and we'll see what happens. Like, if I enjoy it, great, I'm going to keep doing it. If I don't, okay, eventually I could go back and do that down the line. So it's like...
man, honestly, life's not that serious. The way people make life seem and the way they attend to a lot of stuff, it's like, guys, it's really not that serious.
You got to just take a shot, right? Because especially before this podcast started, I never posted my face on social media ever. Yeah. Instagram stories were like, okay, Jeevan is doing successful, or I'm at a Canucks game. Yeah. Snapchat stories or anything. And then the intro video we had, and I'm like, okay, this is the first time on camera. What the hell am I doing? Right? And then when it comes to all this tech stuff, like, we have no clue what the hell is going on.
But you figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. Do you see an improvement, though, especially in the Punjabi community and mental health for that reason?
I think so. I really do. I think there's a massive change from before. Like, my mom watches a lot of YouTube, and she like to watch radio shows and all that sort of stuff. But there's always counselors on these shows now. I've seen so many being interviewed. I've seen so many people explaining mental health in terms that can be digested by the elders and just by everybody. I find that the registered clinical counselor role is being taken up by a lot of Punjabi females. I've like honestly like go through it, and there's just so many now. So those are all great signs, I think, that we're headed in the right direction. Obviously we have work to do, but that doesn't mean that society as general doesn't have work to do. But I think we're headed in the right direction with that stuff. There's a lot more empathy now, and people are utilizing these tools. Like after I kind of got in the groove of just seeing the counselor and stuff, I just thought it was like, oh, this is like going to the gym for my emotions, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you guys came, you paid us to train you. I see it no different. Me turning around paying this person to help me unpack my thoughts and my emotions and help me get through a thing, right? And another thing for our community also is when you're dealing with tough decisions like things like divorce and these other things, it's tough getting honest opinions from your family members. Everybody has a biased view.
Yeah.
If you're like best friends with the other significant other or whatever, you're gonna give me one view. If you hate my significant other, you're gonna give me one view.
Exactly.
Right? So it's gonna be a constant pull and push, right? But at the end of the day, it's a kind of like you have your selfish reasons for me making my decision because it impacts your life in a certain manner. So it's like you're thinking of that as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, are you really thinking about me and my well-being and blah blah blah, or like what is it? Is it convenience or? And so it's hard to tell that with our community, right? Because we're so collectivist, we're in it together.
Yeah.
It can be hard to separate the whole, because to be quite honest, originally in our culture, like your feelings don't matter. We're living with 12 people. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like your feelings don't matter.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so that it was always just about the greater good of the community. It's like, no, as long as our family, the hoga, chunga nahi lagda, like
exactly,
all those things, right?
Exactly.
So then you just kind of
Loki
get
and
all that sort of stuff, right? But once you can get past that, they can start living authentically. Honestly, man, it's like it's a freeing experience.
Yeah, because Derek said it perfectly. Because like when his brother passed away, and he didn't know how to deal with it, and I think he said, we released the clip yesterday, I know, but he said
he never believed in counselors.
Yeah, he didn't really believe in it.
I literally just watched 2 hours ago. Watched that clip.
Yeah, he didn't believe in counselors. He didn't really let his parents grieve properly because they're worried about his, their son passed away, but now they're worried about the other son not, like you said, you had through alcohol abuse for a little bit, and then he's like, going to that counselor was the best decision of his life, and now he's back to playing soccer and stuff like that. So for sure, it's great though. Like stories like yours, Ben's, Derek's, everyone is like, it's showing that like counselors are a thing 100%. For the Punjabi community, and it's no longer like, why explain our problems to a random third person, outside
and honestly,
person.
There's a lot of people will say, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
a lot of people will
good.
say like, oh, I don't need a counselor. What the fuck, counselor? But when you look at some people's habits, it's like, wait a minute. You all know guys that they drink every day. They literally drink a Mickey every day.
Yeah.
They just think it's normal.
Yeah.
What's normal about that? There's nothing normal about that. So it's like you are going through something that you have to self-medicate yourself with that much alcohol because you just can't get through your day. And it doesn't matter what the substance is. It could be fucking cheeseburgers for all I care about.
Yeah, like for us, it's like sugar. And like
but what it is a maladaptive habit that we have, right? Because a lot of times also is like in these Indian households, it's like, there was like karu going on or whatever, like domestic issues or whatever. Someone's kind of going off, or you have a drunk like uncle or something, or whatever the case is. We didn't know it, but we were self-medicating with sugar. Like we always just popsicles and breezies and all that. It'd be quick chaos going on, and we just do that. And we sit in front of the TV. That's we're numbing ourselves because of the environment, right? And so now as adults, that turns into something else. And until you have the awareness to see that, hey man, something's up, something's off. Yeah. And then you can kind of, so like even with the booze now, it's like I'm on my 5th year of no alcohol whatsoever. Yeah. So I haven't. So the day I got separated, kind of thing. After that, like I didn't touch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we're not saying, especially you, because you were a part of a divorce, saying like, oh, one minor thing happens, you go for a divorce. It's not like a boyfriend-girlfriend breakup. No. Right? Because there's always illegal implications. It's like, okay, try to make it work. And if you can, 100%. And then, okay, unfortunately, 100%. It comes down to it, right? Yeah. Especially in an abusive relationship, it's a whole different story, right? So like how Ben's story was that way. Yeah. So we're not like advocating divorce just because we did that either.
The thing is, you can never speak of it in a manner of like, oh, it should be done or it shouldn't be done kind of thing. You have to look at the circumstances and so forth and kind of go from there.
Everything's different.
100%, right? But what I could say to people is like, the one thing I'm noticing with our community now, because the rate is pretty high, and it has been pretty high in our community specifically, I'm seeing more common law happening now. I'm seeing more people moving in together before they're getting married and stuff like that. So it is moving in the right direction, I feel. Like nowadays, you'll see aunties, they'll talk and they'll be like, yeah, common law, like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Whereas 10 years ago, common law or moving in with someone was such taboo, right? But we as a society had to get a bunch of people to go through certain experiences in order to see that, hey, we're clearly kind of doing something wrong.
Yeah, because we had to, like, it's our job to also educate our older generations, like grandparents and parents, like life's evolving, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's not try not to be traditional stuff like
times
that,
change,
right? Like, for example, podcast, people make money out of this. It's not like you have to do a 9 to 5 or be a 12-hour a day doctor or whatever the case may be.
The funny thing is, like, when we're telling our parents we're doing a podcast, we have to explain to them what a podcast was before we're telling that we're doing it.
Because they just think YouTube. That's it. That's
it was the same thing even with my mom. And after, like, she ended up being one of our biggest fans, right? Like, she every time we came out with an episode, she'd sit there and I'd catch her like sitting in the room watching it.
Oh, my mom does the same thing.
Yeah,
like, she has no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah, like sometimes listening to it, or she'll even bring it up. So I kind of understood what you were talking about here, but what were you trying to say and so forth. So they're like, our parents are really supportive once we open up the lines of communication. I think it's just that sometimes with their experiences, it's been tough for us as their kids to communicate with them, just because of these stories we have in our heads. Yeah. Right? They're really narratives in our heads, is what it is. We think they're going to say that. And how many times have they actually said what you thought they were going to say? A lot of the times, everything, like, think about, like, those really bad mess-ups you guys had in the last, like, say 10 years, 15 years. Yeah. Remember how scared we said, oh, my God, Dad's going to find out, and it's over.
Yeah, exactly.
But then what actually happened when he found out? Nothing much. Literally nothing.
Yeah.
Kind of just looked at you, laughed it off, and blah, blah. Because what we didn't recognize is those were tough moments for them too. Yeah. Because he didn't know how to react either. Yeah. It's the first time he's being thrown in this whole show too, right? You're
like feeling a test for the first time.
Well, what did his dad teach him, kind of thing? And like, they were more concerned about, you wake up at 4 and go to the farm. Yeah. We didn't have these sorts of things. So now I feel like, we're getting a lot better.
All right. So you mentioned that you're now vegan or plant-based.
Yeah, predominantly.
No more alcohol in your life. You're doing a lot more pot. Yeah. So how easy was that transition for you? Do you have urges to go back to eating meat or drinking alcohol? Would you ever? I guess that's time.
It's hard to say if I would or wouldn't. Like, you just live life one day at a time.
Yeah. And how often do you like, bro, how are you not eating this meat, man? It's so good at their parties.
Yeah. People, I have like carnivore friends too, like some on Instagram and stuff, and I'll go back and forth with them, but like, we're friends kind of thing. Yeah. So I never take anything personally. That's the thing. But it's crazy how people are pretty fiery on either end, right? Like, some of the vegans and plant-based people are so like one way, and the meat people are so one way. But to speak to like the transition, in the beginning, that first month or two, I would say was hard. But in certain situations, man, like hall parties are obviously a little bit harder, especially when everybody's just drinking and stuff, right?
And the butter chicken's there for you.
But the chicken, honestly, I haven't. Meat, I really don't have too many cravings. Okay. I honestly can't say like, oh, I had like I have in that. So when I say predominantly plant-based, I read a book where the guy was kind of like, as long as like less than 10% or 5% of your calories, or just, sometimes you'll have a thing here or there. So for me, I have had salmon. Yeah. But it was like in a month, maybe I had it once or something. Yeah. Right? Just like randomly had it. Because I didn't want to be so restrictive in the sense that if I'm out, it's kind of like a hassle for my wife or for people. So it's like, if it's there, I'll just kind of eat it, right? But I don't like buy salmon and bring it home and cook it at home and eat it. Okay. Right? Like I just predominantly eat vegan or vegetarian. Another thing is where I mess up. People know this about my sweet tooth, like cookies and baked goods and things like that. So sometimes it's hard. Like, if I have the vegan option available, I'll take it. But a lot of the times they're putting sugar and dod and everything else in there. So sometimes in those situations I break that part of it, but I'm still vegetarian. I haven't had meat, I think, in 2 or plus years. I haven't had beef or steak. My views on that, honestly, like, I feel the cow is like a divine, sacred animal, right? So to speak to the so like accounting is another thing that I do. I'm involved in Sansar Solutions. So all our accountants are offshore, right? They're CPAs, but one of our main accountants is in Bangladesh. Yeah. And like out there, they buy cows and they can make an income off a cow. So like, there was a lady who, used to work for one of our main accountants as like a housekeeper or whatever. And unfortunately, she gave birth to a kid who ended up passing away, and it was a boy. And her husband held her responsible for it. And then he divorced her because this miscarriage happened.
Yeah.
Essentially leaving her like she was just gonna starve.
Yeah.
Right. And so every now and again I send some money to Bangladesh, and I'll tell our accountant, you know, use this for this, use this for this. And so I sent some money, and he's like, he messaged me, he said, hey, I took that money and I put some other money in with it, and we got her a cow, and now she can make an income per month, and now she's not worried about anything.
Yeah.
So it's like I impacted somebody's livelihood, or people's livelihood is impacted by this animal because this animal gives milk.
Yeah.
We're like caging them up, killing them so that we can eat steak. Like, to me, it's just wrong. Now, you don't have to have the same opinions as me, right?
Yeah,
sure.
And obviously people have their own opinions and stuff, but to me, like, it's and you know, I've seen statues and things, like there is this divinity that's associated with cows, and they're like smart too, and they have personalities, right? Like, even back in the day, like, you talk about it, like in one house, like, you know, in the masjid right?
Yeah.
Like there's a specific person who had to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Ode hat thaiya.
Yeah.
Meaning that person. So you have to treat them a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't have these machines hooked up to them. We're like constantly milking them, getting like 4-liter jugs. We used what we kind of needed.
Yeah.
We took care of the animal and stuff. That's a different style. So that's why for me, like, yeah, I don't drink milk. I don't think that a lot of that stuff is healthy.
Yeah, for me, like, if mom's like, yeah, no more dairy for you, like, I don't know how I would react.
Yeah,
as I grew up on milk and
heard,
ice cream and everything.
I know people have had that. Like, when I talk to people, a lot of times when I talk to Singhs, man, Singhs, you want to become powerful Singh, you gotta go vegan, man. Like, right? Like, but then just to turn to the Sikhi thing, like my wife now, Anoop, her father is like a very like intellectually advanced individual, but he's also spiritually very advanced.
Yeah.
And he like says studied the Guru Granth Sahib and everything, like, and so I learn a lot from him as well. So like throughout my journey, having him there to explain things to me and to kind of put things into perspective, and then having, like, you know, the basics of Sikhi, like the YouTube channel and stuff like that. I think that is the issue. We can't. It's harder for our generation to understand the Gurmukhi straight up, unless someone does good, like, English translation, even, and transliteration is tough.
Yeah,
it doesn't get the right meaning out. So when I started listening to some of the kathas in English from the basics of Sikhi people from the UK, because someone had sent it to me, I started to understand the message a lot deeper, and I started to like be like, yeah, I totally agree with this.
Yeah,
it's like, if I have my choice, right? And I choose to identify as this and learn these things and so forth. So it just kept rolling, man. It just kept rolling. Like, it just started to become a thing where now it's like I woke up in the morning, I'm going to go do my run, right? And I'm listening to podcast as I'm doing the run.
Yeah.
Or I'm listening to I'm doing the podcast as I'm trying to run kind of thing, right? Yeah. Because I would learn that, like, even the Sikh warriors, you wake up 4:30 in the morning, you know, they do their Gatka and then Bani, right?
Yeah.
So I felt that if I use some of these tenets of the way that they want us Sikhs to live, I feel like I can propel myself even further, right? And so I found that, like, it became easy when I had that awareness.
So, like, you don't generally miss meat and alcohol for that, right? Like,
I
think once you're in, you're good. Like, it's like maybe, like you said, the initial process. Like, I don't know why people would say to us, like, oh my God, how do you not eat meat? I'm like, we've never had it. So
here's
we don't
the
really
thing,
miss it. And I genuinely don't like the smell.
Yeah, the smell in the grocery stores, I'm like...
Or like smell at the hall parties. Yeah, I was never a fan of it.
The thing is that I feel like the biggest thing that they like, it's not the meat per se. Because how many people do you know that eat a skinless, boneless chicken breast as is, no flavor? No.
Nobody eats
that's meat on its own, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they like the spices and the texture,
the seasoning, has to be there,
and the sauces and all that. You go to a really good vegan place, right? Let's go to, like, I don't know, like,
meat,
even meat, like, yeah. So like some of their junk food items or whatever, but even some of their items that have it tastes like meat to me, man.
Like meat in Gastown, I think, is like a place.
Yeah, and there's meat on Main. So meat on, like, so the other thing I should have mentioned is, so I live in South Van, and when I made the transition to plant-based, it was easy for me because at the time I had so many options.
Yeah, back then there was no options either.
So like there's Planetary, they closed it down, but Planetary Burger, they made these like awesome plant-based burgers, like fresh.
Yeah.
And I would have a double Like, every weekend I'd go there every weekend without fail, or I'd do a long run and then I'd go. So like those burgers to me tasted like meat. So I'd have those. I'd have the fries. And so, yeah, I didn't really have any inklings to that. I think the alcohol thing is one of those things where, it's like sometimes people they'll go on a dinner. They'll be at the dinner for 3-4 hours and they just keep talking. So it's a social lubricant. So like, it's tougher for me to sustain like long conversations or do the things that, how people just stay out for hours. Yeah. Part of the reason is because they're drinking, right?
Yeah.
But like if they were sober, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing I find is in a lot of the scenarios I've been in, like at parties or things like that, I simply was just like, you remove these cups to remove this alcohol, these people will leave this house. They would not be like, those two people over there are not be talking to each other.
Yeah. I feel like awkward though when we have like family get-togethers, like everybody is now at the age of drinking, and whereas I'm just kind of awkward just sitting there because it's not like because they drink and I don't. It's just like conversation wise, it's like that's just me as a person too. So
yeah.
But
so it just I'm naturally more of an introvert. Yeah. So like when I go to these things, I can turn on the extrovert part
depending on how comfortable you are with the person.
Right. Yeah. And then I just have this like kind of marketing sense of like whatever, like I like selling things and so forth. So it's just I like the banter sometimes, right? So I can do that, but when I leave and I go home, I'm very exhausted.
Yeah.
And so it's not my natural tendency to be like that. So I just get really exhausted. So I can see why people want to kind of drink. And certain situations, like I was at a wedding earlier this summer or like months ago. It was like a really close friend of my wife's. And so what I ended up doing is I started just being the bartender, to be honest. They needed someone to help with like, you know what I mean? So what you do is I just get active. So I just start helping out.
Yeah.
So just kind of go in, hey, what's up? You need another beer? But start doing that kind of thing. Then that way it keeps me occupied as well. But people find that very interesting. They say, what the hell? Like the one guy that doesn't drink, he's the one that's pouring the drinks too, right? And then the other thing is because I'm sober, I don't really have much of a clue of what I'm doing. So everyone's getting these super stiff drinks, right?
It was different because I'm rich, so they know much, like not to say too much to me. I mean, I'll take it as a joke, but like they know, like they know our family, like our obviously cousins respect us that way. With him, they might be joking around, but like, oh, you don't drink, or you're not Amrishak, you could start drinking as a joke. So he jokes around. I joke around
with him, just like saying, like, yo, I think they're get together later. Like my mom was like, yo, I get like I tip my barber this, right? And I was like, I tip him $0 because I don't go to one, right? And then
exactly, like, I was like, those type of jokes, like he's pretty good at. But you've had alcohol, obviously, and you've had 0% alcohol. We've never had 0% alcohol.
Yeah.
How bad is it? From what I heard, 0% alcohol is bad.
You mean like those
Budweiser zeros or like Corona 0%?
I think the taste is actually pretty close, man.
Actually,
it is really close. It's
because you've had both. Because people, from what I heard,
I've had both, and I think they're pretty close. There's like a missing like spiciness. There's like this final spiciness, but they've got it down really, really well. And I love how they're now sponsoring like these F1 things and so forth. Like I'm seeing Heineken Zero being advertised. I'm seeing Guinness Zero being advertised, and like I'm seeing it on tap at certain restaurants and stuff. So I think just like the destruction that alcohol itself can do to a society, and it does, especially to our society. Like we need, like at my wedding, I was like, one of my friends, like Arky, he was saying, this is the first wedding I've been to with this much 0% alcohol beer. I was the only one drinking it too, but like I'd always have one with me, and that was like, those are tricks that I would use to kind of keep me going, right? And it's an easy way to mask things too, right? Like sometimes in the world of business too, people kind of freak out when they see, okay, this guy, why is he being sober? What's going on here? Like blah, 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 right? And then they feel uncomfortable or whatever. So it's like you can literally pour a non-alcoholic beer into a beer glass and get rid of the bottle and just hold that in your hand. And now I'm a chameleon. And I fit in. And they just don't know, right?
And just act drunk.
And so if you actually look at like 50 Cent, he doesn't drink alcohol. Like Yo Gotti, I think he's a rapper, he doesn't drink alcohol. Like most successful business people don't really drink alcohol. They just keep the ones around them liquored up. Right? Like it's about the shine and the whatever, but they actually don't really drink it.
Yeah, because I've heard like I've seen reactions of people that don't drink, like so they're like us. They say they hate the taste of it, and I don't know how much of it is because they never had actual alcohol.
Yeah, for beer is an acquired taste, and you have to acquire the taste. So you have to drink beer.
So we'll probably.
So I acquired it. Yeah, I acquired it, and then I stopped drinking the alcoholic version, and I went to zero. You're never gonna see someone that never drinks just go to zero and stick at zero.
So that's probably why we'll probably hate it.
Yeah, exactly, you will hate it. You'll find it disgusting. Yeah. It's absolutely disgusting. It's like coffee. You guys drink coffee? Like black coffee?
No, really,
no. So I drink black coffee every day, and I love it. Yeah. I love the taste of coffee.
Yeah, I'm not.
I hated the taste of coffee when I first started.
It's like that's how it is for everything.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last thing before we get into stories and like talk some sports.
Yeah.
Your marathon journey. How did that? And you said your brother training, so that's how it began. And then eventually, how did that progress to triathlon and Ironman? Because I see your stories that you're always swimming, whether it be at the pool, and then eventually like a lake or an ocean.
Ocean,
yeah, it has to be ocean.
Yeah,
that's how they do it in Ironman.
A lake, bro.
How did that all go?
Yeah, man, that's a very interesting thing. But what I found also is like, okay, so you're going through this space of transformation, right? So I've seen in the space of transformation, a lot of the times, this sport ends up being like a tenet for a lot of people, right? Like people go through a divorce, start doing triathlon. People stop drinking alcohol, they start doing triathlon. People lose someone close to them, start doing triathlon. Someone gets cancer, start raising funds, start doing triathlon, things like that. And so I kind of would see these motivational videos of the Ironman stuff, but just to go to the running part, my brother introduces it to me, asks me to coach him. I say, okay, quickly that turns into us running together. We start running together and I go from couch to 10K, I think 3 weeks or something. So I just ran for 3 weeks, did a 10K, East Side 10K, 47 minutes. Then 6 more weeks of training, I did a half marathon, 21.1 kilometers. And thing is like, I found that because the space at that time, I'm going through divorce, I'm going through like emotions. You're going through a lot of tough things, right? And so I'm reading David Goggins, I'm seeing a lot of his stuff. And he has that concept of callousing the mind, right? So basically, I realized that if I just put myself through some type of suffering, right, self-inflicted, but in like a controlled, healthy manner, I can strengthen myself through this period that I have to go through, right? And so running became that. I would be out there with my brother, we'd be running, piss and rain, whatever. You came back, there was like this feeling that you had, and like everything wasn't as serious anymore. Like your anxiety wasn't as bad and so forth. So I loved that part of it. And so I did the half marathon and did it like 1:42. And then I got injured because you can't just go couch to those things real quick and all of a sudden you get injured. So then we had to start figuring out how to kind of, get rid of these injuries and so forth. And then, I'd also now, eventually I meet now my wife Anoop. So I met her and we started dating, and she was a varsity swimmer at SFU and for 2 years. Yeah. So like she's pro, right? And so basically I'm just like, okay, what the hell? And then I'm like picking up these signs, and also like I'm doing the spot and stuff. And then I start connecting with her dad. And so I'm like looking at all these signs like, wow, this is crazy. Like everything's just headed in one direction. What are the chances? And so then she kind of introduces, like says, okay, this is what we got to do for swimming. She coached me a little bit. And then I started going to the pool, and I got a coach to coach me because now I had decided, I think after I did my half marathon, I decided, or like at one of my birthdays, I decided that I want to do a full Ironman by 40. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so I was like, I want to do a full Ironman by 40. At the time, still didn't know how to swim. So I'm making these big goals, and it was now time to start attacking them like kind of systematically. Right. And so I finished the half marathon. So I know how the running I can do. And like we were in track and field. So that wasn't something that I thought was going to be too difficult. And so got out of that. And so now I get a guy to start coaching me in swimming. I think I got 8 lessons, 1-on-1. And then started going to the pool almost every morning, like 6 a.m. Show up to the pool, right? Listen to the part, do my big 3, right? Big 3, bird dog side plank, right? All that, because I had a back injury too, right? Yeah. I do that, and then I go in and I would swim and just stringing it together. And I'm literally just telling myself, like I was so bad at swimming that when we would go together, my wife and I, she would have to go to the lifeguard and tell them like, hey, this guy's learning, because a few times lifeguard like looked at her, went over to her and said, is he okay? Like he looks like he's drowning. Right. And she's like, no, he's not drowning, that's just how he swims right now. So then eventually I love challenge, And so I got the coach, and then I kept doing the swimming, and I started to get better. I started to get better and better, and I started helping out my back, helping out my mental health as well. The running was one of those things where you kind of would run for periods, and now you get injured, and now you're fixing the injury, doing the rehab, and so forth. And so eventually, I don't know how long I swam for, because COVID came in this period as well, so it interrupted things a little bit. So for those periods, I would just go back. I would go sign up, do the swimming. I wasn't biking, so I didn't really bike, but I had a bike. You guys remember that that accountant would come at Fit Nation, Paul Grable? I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know if you guys were there when he was there, but anyways, he sold me a bike for like $500 or something. It was like a road bike, right? That was my first ever bike. Yeah. And so I had that, and now I'm learning the swimming. I'm getting kind of good at it. I've got the running part down, and then I think it was 2021, right? So no, 2020. What year is it right now?
2023.
2023, yeah.
So it was 2022 then. So yeah, so 2022. As we're getting into, I think, August or September, so I did the full BMO marathon, and I injured myself. I got IT band syndrome, right? It completely blew up on like kilometer 32 or whatever. It was a terrible race for me, and so I injured myself. Now I couldn't run as much, and I can't really swim as much. Yeah, but I think I can bike now. Right? And so then now, like, I'm basically like, okay, shit, we've done one marathon, and I'm like, okay, now I can go back to half marathons. And then Jag's kind of like, yeah, you got tendinopathy. So I had tendinopathy in the right knee, I had tendinopathy in the left knee, and having these things. I'm like on these forums, and I'm finding that a lot of the runners that are getting injured are starting to go into triathlon, right? And so then I started taking the bike out, started configuring things with the bike and all that, messed myself up. And then I think by September, I saw that the registration was open for the Victoria Half Ironman. And so now I've never swam in open water at this point. I've done the pool swimming. Yeah. And I think I had gotten to a point where I could swim for almost an hour straight without taking a break. Yeah. So the distance was there, but there was a fear of open water. Yeah. Right? And so now I'm like, okay, I got to sign up. So I sign up, and now I got to start biking too, because I haven't been biking. Yeah. So I literally have to start doing the biking thing. So I got an indoor trainer, figured out how to do all that. Started to basically take my kinesiology knowledge and be my own trainer, because I didn't hire anybody. So I started to create my own training program, and then I met this guy who had done a full Ironman. The only Aprana that I know that did a full Ironman, his name was Alexi, and met him at the BMO Marathon. And then we got together for a swim. I think it was in September. And this guy just pumped me up. Yeah. He's like, bro, you're completely fine. You got to register today. Register for your half Ironman. In fact, register for the full Ironman too. He's like, you could do it. He's like, trust me, you can do it. He's like, before I did my first one, he's like, this is how I did. He's like, you're way more fit than me. So we had a coffee. We swam. He pumped me up. I went home. I freaking registered. Right? Yeah. So I registered. Now it's on. So then I got rid of that road bike because it wasn't very good. Or I just put it to the side, and I got a triathlon bike. So I bought one off Marketplace. So I got that. It's kind of decent. So now I'm doing the biking, now I'm running. And then for the swimming, I meet this lady. Her name is Ellen. She's one of my good friends. And she introduced me to open water swimming. She's a cold water swimmer. So around the world, there's people that swim in oceans that are below 5 degrees. It's essentially cold plunge. Yeah. And they swim in it without wetsuits. Nothing. Just straight, whatever. So I met her at Minru. And it's like November or December. She mentions like, oh yeah, I just went to Kits. And I was like, oh, so you were wearing a wetsuit? She's like, no. I was like, what the hell? I was like, how'd you not get hypothermia and die?
That's, like that's a Lady Wim Hof right there.
Lady Wim Hof, exactly. And I used to follow Wim Hof, which is another reason why I was so like, wow. I'm like, wait a minute. What are the chances that she's going to get placed in my path as well, right? Yeah. So now you're seeing all these things just keep lining up, right? And so there was this one triathlete. He's one of our best Canadian triathletes. His name is Lionel Sanders. He has a great YouTube channel as well. And so he's won Ironman. So he's a professional triathlete, and he's from Ontario. So I started talking to him, and I'm already following his YouTube stuff as I'm doing all this. So I meet Ellen, and she's like, yeah, we moved over from Ontario. And then she's like talking about triathlon, and then I mentioned Lionel Sanders. She's like, he used to swim and learned swimming at the pool where I taught. So she's from the exact same area as him. He went to McMaster. She went to McMaster.
Yeah.
They like literally talked and they would kind of almost train together. And then she pumped me up. She's like, you should have seen how bad he was at swimming.
Yeah.
She's like, I've seen you swim and I saw him swim when he started. She's like, you're better.
Yeah.
So when she said that, and I'm like, okay, great. Awesome. We're in business. So then I met her at Kits. No like wetsuit, nothing. December, freezing cold. And I went in the water and then I think it was 2 minutes. I could barely last, man. The body, like I just wanted to like, I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And then I got out of there. And then the next week we did 5 minutes. And then the next week we did 8 minutes. And then the next week she's like, now you got to try to swim. So then I think then I did 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I had to get my head in the water. So you're talking freezing water, get your head in there and your head's moving. So you don't actually get a thermal layer around your body. You know, Huberman talks about that thermal layer. So that keeps getting stripped. So imagine getting basically a brain freeze as you're trying to swim.
Yeah.
And I'm going from the pool where I can see a line at the bottom to now I just see like mist.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't see anything. The only time you see is when you turn your head to breathe or when you decide to sight and look up.
Yeah.
These are all things I'd never done before.
Yeah.
So she gets me to the point where I could swim in the ocean. There was like snow on the mountains, had no wetsuit on, -2 degree air temperature, 5 degree water temperature, 18 minutes, 800 meters in open water. And so my ideology behind this was Victoria's half Ironman swim is in a lake with a wetsuit.
Yeah.
In a pretty decent temperature. Not going to be cold.
Yeah.
How do I make this harder for myself? Go to the ocean, take off the wetsuit, right? And then boom, there you go.
Yeah.
It's just now it's going to be harder. And the ocean, it's like viscous, right? And usually when there's current and stuff, you're like, it's like a resistance running.
Yeah.
So eventually we switched over and I started putting the wetsuit on. And, I started swimming regularly once or twice a week in the ocean. And I found that to be one of the most therapeutic things ever, man. Like, just like, like doing BOT or even doing the BOT, it's kind of sitting at shore.
Yeah.
Then jumping in the water.
Yeah.
Right now you're like a part of nature and your mind just gets still. And everything that you're thinking about, all these little stupid things, I got this, I got to do this, I got to do that, nothing exists.
Yeah.
Just the moment, right? And so that exposure to cold water swimming was really cool. And then I started doing it with the wetsuit. And then now I think we're at the top of the year and I've now left Fit Nation. So there was a period where I wasn't even really working. I was mostly just focusing. I was just training. I had the opportunity to do that. I was blessed to do that and basically worked the biking up to almost 200 kilometers a week, right? A little bit outside, a little bit inside. Swimming about 4 kilometers a week, running about 40 kilometers a week. So I used to train about 9 to 12 hours per week. Did that, picked it up, and then we did the half Ironman in May 28. My goal, right before it, I ended up getting Achilles tendinopathy, so I couldn't do the run training properly.
Yeah.
And then the goal was to do a sub 6 hour half Ironman, and I hit my goal. Yeah. So I did 5 hours and 48 minutes, and it was actually one of the most gratifying. It's one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. Like I could truly say that entire time I was so fucking happy. Like I was fully present, and also like it was there's moments where I felt that I wish I could have bottled up that emotion and I can like take a pill of that every day kind of thing, right? But it was just it was a great experience. We're talking 5 hours 48 where I swam for 1.9 kilometers, 38 minutes is what my time was. And you got to remember this is all without headphones.
Yeah.
Right? So you have nothing. It's just you and your thoughts. So then I biked 90 kilometers. It took me 3 hours and 10 minutes. And then I got off the bike and then I did a half marathon. And I did that in an hour 50 or so. So 5:48. And yeah, that was real fun. I'm so happy that I did it. Yeah. I met a lot of like all these friendships I've made in the process of it as well. And so now it's kind of like working my way up to hitting that goal of doing the full Ironman when I kind of, before I turn 40, and then potentially maybe doing 1 or 2 of these a year kind of thing. Yeah. I'm not super serious about it where it's kind of like I'm chasing certain things. Yeah. I find that this is a great sport for me because of what it does to other areas of my life. It keeps the routine intact, keeps my health intact, keeps my mental health intact. Yeah. It gives me time away from business to really just let go and, kind of exercise and stuff. So that's part of the reason why I continue to do that. I feel like you're not going to be able to advance yourself as an entrepreneur or as a human until you take care of like your mental and physical aspect.
Yeah.
The sport of triathlon tends to do that. That's why a lot of the times you see the guys are doing Ironman. They're like CEOs in Fortune 500 companies and things like that. And it's just like this, it goes with their personality. And that day, I saw so many like 60-year-old people that look so healthy, so fit, and they're doing half Ironmans. And I just hope and pray that one day I can be that 65-year-old that's doing a half Ironman.
Yeah.
And so just what it stands for is what pulls me towards.
Yeah, I think the Diaz brothers, Nate and Nick Diaz, do it too.
Full Ironman.
Yeah, full Ironman. That's like what, 5 hours? So that's like double that.
No, it's basically double. Yeah, it's so I did half, so I did a full, like it's like a complete double. That's another reason why it's kind of a bit scary task.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 180 kilometer bike ride, right?
Yeah.
So like I've done a 90, I've done 100, I've done 110, 105, and like you're out there, you're on your bike, bro, for like 3-4 hours, 5 hours. So when you start training a full Ironman, you got to be out there for 6 hours, 5-6 hours. And I just feel like if you can get to that level where like you have that discipline to do that, and like you're in a different world, man.
Life lesson: find a bunch of hype men and hype women.
Yeah, exactly. Straight up, man.
So when's the goal to do the? You haven't registered for any full Ironman yet,
I haven't registered for a full.
So you're still training.
I'm just So basically, for me, training, quote unquote, is just keeping up with my routine.
Yeah.
Right. So I just hope to always be training anywhere from 6-7 hours up to like 9 hours or whatever. Because the other thing is, I'm a big guy on longevity, right? And when you look at longevity, your people that have higher VO2 maxes are able to outlive those with lower VO2 maxes.
Yeah.
So like there's metrics like watts per kilogram on the bike. How many watts can you pump per kilogram of body weight? Has so many correlations with health outcomes, diabetes, blood sugar levels, things like that. So for me, I want to keep that metric good. I want to keep my VO2 max high. I want to have like good strength and stuff, because when I start going 60, 70, 80 years old, that VO2 is going to start to drop like crazy. And when you get to a certain level, I think it's 30 or something, there's a certain VO2 that if you get under it, like just doing basic, like going to the washroom, going to the kitchen is going to be so hard for you. So I'm like armoring myself up for being like a kick-ass baba.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what I'm doing. Like for me, I'm like, it's like the long game, right?
Yeah.
So I just told myself, keep up with the routine, keep like methodically training, and then these like races and things like that will just kind of fall in place, right? Like the way they do. So for me, it's like, I see this commitment to those things is the same as my commitment to like the Panj Bani of Path that I do every morning kind of thing. So, and a lot of times I do it together.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you done the big races, like the marathon, for example, like the Boston, or do you plan on doing that?
No, I would have to qualify for that.
Oh, okay.
So I got a bit of a ways to go for that. But like I know Ben's Ben's around the corner with that for sure.
Yeah.
And he's definitely gonna hit that. He's a deadly marathoner for sure.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's
He's
like
a different level. You look at some of the metrics and the commitment that he has, and the amount of kilometers he's running per week now, and just coming from being like a just straight gym bro weightlifting guy to doing this, it's so admirable to watch. But he's definitely a marathon. I think he might end up being probably the fastest Punjabi marathoner within this like city for sure, if not the province, at some point, as long as he kind of keeps up with it and stuff too. Because he could literally register for BC Athletics now if he wanted next year, and he could be like the 35 masters class and do 5,000 and 10,000 meters, and he'd get some pretty decent placement as well.
Like Brown Kipchoge.
Brown
Kipchoge, right?
He's deadly, man. He's got this iron will too with when it comes to running. Like I would always struggle a lot of the times with some of these threshold things, and that's where he loves to exist.
I didn't know you had to qualify. I thought it was like the Vancouver Sun. You're registering.
Now it's the point where I think you qualify, and then you get put in a lottery.
He said it like on our episode. He's like he has to go like I think Sacramento just to like qualifying or something.
So he's gonna do that. It's gonna be in December. So he's gonna he's gonna do that, and then I think he has to hit 3 hours or 3:05. He's gonna be 35 years old though when he does it, right? So his time now has gone up a little bit, I think. So it's between 3 to 3:05. But right now, all the metrics that are showing in his training and stuff, he's like right there. If not breaking 3, I think he might break 3. He's gonna be 2:59, 2:58. And the course is one of the West Coast's fastest courses as well. But even if it was hilly, he was still gonna do it.
So for your triathlon, do you have like a favorite aspect? Like do you like the swim more, or do you like the bike more, or something? Or is it like
I find the biking is the hardest personally for me to like keep up with regularly. Like after I finished my half Ironman, I didn't really bike regularly. Like for me, there's a lot of friction involved with that end of it for some reason. Like I gotta get my bottles ready, I gotta get my nutrition ready, I gotta put on my biking outfit, I gotta pull the bike out, I gotta do this, gotta do that, and then you're like hitting the lights and shit and stuff like that. And, you know, then there's like the fear factor of getting hit by cars and all that, and then near misses and things like that. But after I got out of that, we kind of moved the arrangement, so the area that I had my trainer kind of moved and stuff like that. So that's kind of been tougher for me. The swimming, I would say, is the one where, there's moments where I just like, I enjoy, I don't know if it's the sport, but like just like the pleasantness of how I feel afterwards, and kind of while I'm doing it. But I can't definitely say I have a single one. But however, compared to everybody else, just looking at the way I finished, when I got to the run part, I think I overtook almost 40 people in my like age group category. So my running is showing as being the strongest component right now. But that's kind of because I just came from that background. It's not that I like the running that much more per se. But
because I would think I would enjoy the swimming because I did all my lifeguard courses and everything too. So like I was a certified lifeguard if I did get the job. But because it was funny because all the jokes are always like, oh, put Umrit on the edge of a boat or whatever, he'll just get in and save the person. But okay, let's move on to some fun stories now. We'll go back to the Fit Nation days with us. I asked this to Pardeep and Ben. What did you think of when our family joined Fit Nation? So it was me, then it was him, and then I think about a year or like 6 months to a year as my mom and dad came together. You were primarily with my mom because of the kinesiology aspect, but your reaction to just seeing a whole family there to the point where you had to create like a family plan as well.
I mean, honestly, man, I think we manifested that. Like that was what drove me towards the brand in the beginning. Like I remember sitting in the high performance strength and conditioning class, and the teacher's going off, and then she's explaining this way of training people. And the light bulb moment I had was, we need to apply this to our community, right? Like it was about attracting like the family environment and demographics in our community that you would never see in the gym. And when we saw your family, we accomplished that. Because your mom would never have gone to a gym. Right, and that was that was the market space we wanted to capture.
Because she went to She's Fit for a little bit.
So it's always environment was always the problem, man. Environment was always the problem, and so that was the biggest thing that I saw with the purple cow aspect. So Seth Godin talks about the purple cow, right? So like you go past a field of cows, the regular cows, you're not gonna really. Then there's the purple cow. Businesses are like that, right? Like there's certain businesses that just really pop out, right? Like Netflix or Uber or whatever, right? Because it's very different than what other things are going on. And so that was like the thing for Fit Nation, was that before that everyone was going after like the physique competitors, everybody's going after the athletes, everybody's going after the soccer players, nobody's going after like your mom, your master, the people that truly need it. Right? Like that was the people in the community that really needed it. And so when we started to see that type of demographic coming in, we were so happy. We're like, this is perfect, man. And then after we saw your guys' family come in, that was like, yeah, man, this is exactly why we're doing what we're doing. So it was almost like validation, like a sign from Waheguruji too, like that, you're headed down the right path. You're creating the right things. You're creating the right spaces. Because even with us, like we were all raised with certain values from our grandparents and from our parents, and you never really see that being reflected in people's work, especially in like the fitness community and stuff like that. And so, yeah, man, I think that was like a very happy moment to see. And anytime even thereafter, now, like even when people go there, it's like family member or like daughter, like mom daughter training together and stuff. It's awesome to see, man. Like that you could actually have. It's sad because gyms always get that notorious, like the environments are never welcoming. You know what I mean? Like commercial gyms, especially for like women and stuff like that. Just for people like are like I know, like even with my mom, I would try to get her to go to Fitness World on Marine Drive, and it's just been so tough, right? Like it's not a natural environment for her to kind of go into. So with Fit Nation, it's like you go in, but then it's like you look around, it's the same. The people look like you. You know what I mean? I think that was the best part about it.
Because when I went to, I think at the time, Steve Nash, I was just like, I know no one's gonna really judge me like or anything, but it's just like that subconsciousness of like, I see a guy doing a plate and I could barely do the bar. Yeah. Right. I'm here to try to learn something. Yeah. And then like I've never worked out before, right? Until I like went to you guys there, and that's where it was like that subconsciousness. Like I was like I needed a trainer. Yeah. Even now, like I'm trying to get back into it. Even if we have that mini home gym setup, which we showed you earlier, it's like now the motivation hopefully gets going again. Yeah. But yeah. Have you ever felt like a hypocrite when you were training people, or I guess kinesiology, but mainly training people, that you were giving them like do this, do that, but
100%. You were the biggest hypocrite in the world.
So the opposite of what Pardeep said.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think honestly we are all hypocrites to a certain level, because in a way we would do things Pardeep said was a hypocrite, but Pardeep used to tell
put a different life lesson, which I understood that perspective too.
But like we would tell people to drink like a 4 liter of milk at one point. We said if you're a young kid, you're trying to gain weight, like one of the people we were following, say drink a 4 liter. We literally got certain kids to drink 4 liters of milk per day. Yeah. I look back at that now, that's the worst advice I could have ever given anybody. I did it, right? I told vegetarian people all the time to start eating meat. I used to say that vegan and vegetarian diets were terrible for you. There's no way you're going to get enough protein, and you have to eat meat. Yeah. And that it's healthy and so forth. So I justified that end of it as well. The drinking too. Right? Yeah. Say, oh yeah, these guys have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right? Like it's so like that part of it, even right down to the weightlifting. Sometimes I felt like, compound lifts and just doing those and doing the deadlift and the squat. That's all you really need to do. You keep going heavy. You need to go heavy. You have to keep going heavy. Yeah. You have to squat till depth. You have to go below depth at times. You have to deadlift off the floor. You have to do power cleans off the floor. Yeah. You have to do this. So it's just like, no, you don't. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Right? You could still get all the other, benefits and stuff. So I would say there's been a lot of hypocrisy in the way that I've kind of seen things. But then I feel like hypocrisy in a way is the foundation of a scientist that learns. Yeah. Right? Like if you think about it, we had doctors saying that Camels is the brand of cigarette I smoke. And the doctors were doing commercials with cigarettes. They're smoking cigarettes. It's like, your doctor smokes Camels. I eventually found, and you know what? Like, at that time, I bet you they knew. Some of them knew too that it probably wasn't 100%. Right. Right? Yeah. But then after years later, you ask that same doctor, you say, you still smoke Camels? He's like, no, that's the dumbest shit.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think for his perspective, I was like, I think I worded it like, have you felt like a hypocrite when you were training, you weren't training stuff? He's like, no, I guess I worded it differently. Yeah. That's why. Not to put him on blast.
No. His was like, because like if you look at Bill Belichick, he's not the fittest guy. No. But he's training, like he's coaching all these super athletes playing football.
Oh, okay, yeah. But when it comes to that part of it,
like I guess I worded his a little different.
The way you look and blah blah blah. Yeah. No, I completely get that. No, there's some coaches that probably don't really look the part.
For me, it was like when I coached this guy or like another team I used to coach, and then what ultimately got me to Fit Nation was like when someone made a comment like, "Why don't you join them?" Because I was completely out of shape then, and like for me, it's like my excuse was, "Oh, I don't want them to be like me, look like me, so that's why I'm making them run." And stuff like that. So that's that's where I was like, okay, in a way, you know what, you're right, because I technically should be getting myself into that shape too. But
I would say I am a bit of a firm believer of the practice which you preach kind of thing. Yeah. So I just think it's kind of, it does lead to like a certain level of inauthenticity depending on how you look at it. Yeah. Right. Like I think when it comes to like a old man like Bill Belichick, it's like
he's like 70
years old, and like he really excels at the game of football, and it involves a lot of reviewing film and doing this and doing that, and I think it's like slightly different in some of those aspects, right? Like Greg Popovich and stuff like that, right? But one of my big mentors, Craig Liebenson, he treated Kobe. He treated Kobe. He was the head chiropractor of the Los Angeles Clippers at one point, and I think he's going to be closing in on 70, and he regularly weightlifts too. Yeah. Right, just to stay fit, but he's preaching that message. Yeah. He's preaching the message of longevity. He's preaching the message of you want to live longer and do those things. So for me, that I want to preach that message. So it's kind of like I have to do those things in order to stay in alignment with that. But when it comes to like some things where like I'm a specialized coach and this sort of thing, well, hey man, I just have years of experience. That you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Who gives a shit if I got a bit of a gut or I like Timbits and you
don't. Gym myths that piss you off.
Gym myths that piss you off. I think the stunting of growth thing used to bother me a lot.
That's a 3 common. All 3 of you guys said that.
Yeah, I think it bothered all of us a lot because it's just not true. And like any time we've seen any of the actual evidence that we would have for it, it was just leaning the other way. Remember that picture of Opie? Like it was kind of like Pardeep did the picture and he was like that. And then literally all he did, he started weightlifting. His mom trusted us. He started weightlifting and the kid just shot.
Yeah, like I saw that.
Him
that
too,
the door. Like
and you too. The door.
Like
so the
door,
almost every kid that ever got measured always grew.
Yeah.
But scientists would also say, well, yeah, you're just looking at one thing. You don't know the A-B comparison, right? We would have to have that same kid not weightlifting and then look at what the difference was going to be. But none of the evidence ever lined up in that manner. So it was always frustrating to kind of see that. So yeah, I would say that's a huge one. Stunting of the growth. What are some other gym myths?
I think Pardeep said something about females getting bulky.
Females getting bulky, that was another one too.
And then I forgot what Ben said. He said one more. But I think the one that I put down here was no, this is more of a reaction thing. But I just said like teenagers like saying upper body's it, not lower body type of thing.
Yeah.
Like the lift off.
Yeah,
thing,
like so speaking to the point of like the women getting bulkier, that was always a tough one. Because it's just like, I don't know why people thought that you're going to start looking a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? Like people just see like steroid monkey, like all of a sudden you think that if you lift weights, that's what you're going to look like. You're going to gain a bunch of weight. So that was always tough. I still deal with that though. I still deal with that where like in that clinic, I have like this older Filipino lady. And I know that once she gets stronger, her back pain's going to go away and her function's going to go up.
Yeah.
But like just like the thought in her head of her having to do some sort of lifting mechanism, she's like, I'm old. Like, I shouldn't be doing that, right? Like, so it's just, I would say old people lifting weights or doing exercise.
I think the one
that bothers me more now.
Yeah, the one I saw like online a lot was like cardio kills your gains. Or like
that's the one him and Ben came up with.
Yeah.
Too.
Cardio kills your gains. Doesn't look like it for Ben, eh?
You look pretty jacked too.
I mean, well, okay, but if you look at his Ben's muscle mass, he has like a lot of muscle mass. Right?
Yeah.
He's like ripped. Like I still think he can bench like probably 2 plates or more, right? And his body weight's probably like in the 160s now.
Yeah.
But no, that more science has proven that's not true. Or even like how where people think you have to keep doing cardio to lose the weight. That's another one too, right? So it's either way, right? Because I feel like you have to have a good mix of both.
Yeah.
You gotta have the weightlifting to a certain degree, and then you gotta have the cardiovascular component as well.
All right, let's get into some sports talk because there's a sport you requested, which we were very surprised that we were talking off camera a little bit. I know you're a fan of college football and basketball, so we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
The first baseball threw us off.
Yeah.
When you messaged me, you're like, okay, I want to talk some baseball. So Jazz, why do you want to talk baseball? What got you into baseball that you want us to talk baseball with you as well?
Yeah, man, I'm a numbers guy. And so I watched Moneyball and I was very intrigued by the subject matter. Thought it was very cool the way that they did their drafting process and how they got the players together. It went against the whole like star power and everything, and they actually started to look at like objective numbers. And that's the way I love to look at life, right? Like you want to look at, should you leave this job and go for another one? Do up the numbers. The numbers will tell you. Should you go do this or do that? Do up the numbers. The numbers will tell you, man. And I feel like, okay, so you guys heard of Daniel Kahneman? He's a writer. He wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow. I think that was the name of it. It's got a little pencil on the front.
Not gonna lie, not much of it.
Then he wrote one. Then he wrote one called Noise. I would check it out. It's about human judgment. And human judgment is so flawed, extremely flawed, extremely flawed. Okay, like when you put screens in front of, like now when they do the orchestra tryouts or whatever, they have to put like screens up and stuff because before they would judge the person based off of the way they kind of looked, right?
Yeah.
So when I saw Moneyball and I saw this objectivity from the numbers, I thought it was really cool. So then I read Moneyball. And I saw that it was a guy from Princeton that came in, like doesn't even really know much about baseball other than the numbers and the stats. And I know that baseball has some of the most statistics than a lot of the other sports. So I saw that, and I came across Bill James and the baseball abstract. He wrote that. That's what the Oakland A's had referenced, or that's what the guy was referencing. And there's this thing called sabermetrics. And sabermetrics is basically the study of baseball statistics and like the significance of the statistics. So I'm seeing all that and I'm like, wow, this is so interesting, right? And I'm also a little bit into sports betting as well. So I started getting into a little bit of sports betting with baseball, read Moneyball, watched Moneyball, and I think I sat through a few games and I liked it. And I was like, yo, man, this is not bad, right? And like just the whole concept and like, before I didn't really matter. And then now I'm finding like, I'm like edge of my seat, like, oh my God, like, is he going to get a strike? Is he not? And I didn't care about any of this stuff, right? But then now it's just one of those things where I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the way the analysts are looking at these two team comparisons and stuff. And I just find it so interesting. And so that's part of the reason why I started watching baseball, and then I started betting on it, and
you should definitely. Did you watch the World Baseball Classic by any chance? Because I had a lot of drama in there. It was like the World Cup of baseball.
No,
it was before the season started. It was like Shohei Ohtani. I'm sure you heard of that name. Mike Trout.
Yeah,
they were it was like Japan versus USA final.
Yeah,
Shohei Ohtani was pitching.
Yeah,
bottom of the ninth. Right, bottom.
Yeah, it was the last
inning. Bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth. I forget which one it was.
It has to be. I think it was bottom.
Yeah, and then Japan's up by 1. Yeah. Mike Trout, his teammate, probably the second best player in baseball after Ohtani now, was like struck him out, dude. It was like the moment. It was like the biggest moment.
Once you get into it, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, see, it's not that boring, guys.
No,
it's not as boring.
But it also, like it depends on like what type of sports you like watching. Like I know, like in our house, hockey was always a thing. So like the speed of the sport matters.
Yeah,
my dad's never gonna sit and watch a baseball game with me.
Yeah,
exactly.
But he'll watch hockey and everything else, and football's harder for him to watch as well.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, man, that numbers thing's really is interesting. So I ended up ordering a couple of books on sabermetrics and then like the analysis of baseball analytics and stuff. Because I'm a big reader, what I kind of do is when I start reading certain material, it kind of like puts me off into other areas and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like one of my only real hobbies, so like, I'm not really going out, I'm not really going to bars and clubs with people. I'm like more of a homebody and stuff. And so like sport has started to become a bigger interest for me.
Yeah.
In particular, this whole sports betting thing. And when I talk about sports betting like that, I'm looking at from like a analysis metric number, and I'm so intrigued at how the hell can people professionally do this and make a living off of just doing sports betting, right?
Yeah.
And so the more I got into the kind of wormhole, I saw a video of a Stanford grad. Okay, this guy went to Stanford. He studied math and computer science. Okay, as a part-time bettor, he made $400,000 in 1 year. Okay, as a part-time bettor.
Yeah,
simply because he created. So you know how to use Excel. But if we use Excel and we create a betting model, which is using different equations and things like that, and we insert the statistics from the main things, we can start to put up, Yankees versus the Mets. We got, Aaron Judge or whoever, and these are the guys that are pitching and blah, blah, blah. You give different metrics, different weight, right? And then you'll be able to see what the total run total is going to be based off of your analysis.
Yeah.
And what the spread should be. And technically who should win based off of the averages of the 2 years leading up to that, right? So when you look at it like that, and you look at it at a statistical thing, it starts to become so freaking interesting.
Yeah. Right?
Because you're like, okay, this seems like and in some instances, man, certain bets are probably safer than you literally going to the bank and getting a check. Like, you know what I mean? But you have to obviously know what you're doing. So when I saw that, I started seeing like the person's putting this in, and then people are identifying these variances with what the sports book set the run total at, what you think the run total should be when you see the big thing, you bet against it, or the public's betting a certain way. So all that stuff's so interesting to me, and that's why baseball started to take off. And this year, I was actually I'm looking at, okay, what day is the game? Like I missed the last game.
I mean, there's everyday games.
Yeah. But I missed the last game for the Rangers and stuff, and that was interesting for me because I think I came out, I bet Rangers, I got it right. Then I think I bet Rangers, I got it wrong. And then because I got it wrong, I really thought the Diamondbacks were going to come back or do it. So then I went Diamondbacks on the next one. And then the Rangers took that one, right?
Yeah.
But that's that's the human flaw. If I was going off statistics and if you just do probability, like hypothetically, if you kind of know, people kind of knew Rangers were going to win, right?
Yeah.
So if you just went $25 every game and you just went every single game across every time they played Rangers, because they ended up winning more games, you end up being on top, even though you're taking the lot. You shouldn't have changed your bet. So changing the bet just messes everything up.
Exactly.
So I'm learning some of these like little nuances and stuff like that. But there's so many of like these prop bets and things like that get really interesting, because you start to see people's like OPS and everything, and you're like, yeah, dude, the statistical chance that this guy's gonna do this is like this high.
Yeah.
And if you know that, you can put in a wager or whatever. It's like, oh wow.
To me, I think baseball is like the one sport like where you could really like look at the analytical side. And, like see it. Compared to other ones, I would say baseball is probably the best one you could do it at.
Other sports are doing it too, but I'm hearing that like more and more sports teams are hiring an actual guy on the staff now. Like that's like they're like hardcore in-depth analysis of statistics and stuff. Yeah. But it's really interesting and cool, man, because literally like some of the stuff we learned in math and all that is actually starting to kind of come into sports and fruition and stuff like that. And then just like listening to these professional bettors and like when they have these different like things, it's gonna be like this and it's gonna be like that, or it's gonna be like that. I don't know. I like forecasting. I find the art of forecasting to be so interesting. Whether we're sitting here talking about how much is going to snow, or like, is there going to be like another book was about forecasting that I read, and it was some of these same sort of authors and stuff. But yeah, just to be able to, what's the chance that there's going to be some sort of civil war in Sudan this year, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And people writing out how much it is, and they're like tracking it and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I think that stuff is super cool, because if you have the mind to analyze the statistics for fun, for like baseball, basketball, things like that, like what do you think you could do with financial statements for a company if I gave them to you? You know what I mean? Yeah. You have the same brain. Yeah. So now you're looking at profit and loss, you're looking at balance sheet, you're looking at these things, you're looking at cost of goods sold, you're looking at the profit margin, you're looking at that, you're looking at the year over year comparison, right? And so now when your brain starts going a certain way, you can pick things up. And you go, oh yeah, this year, this is here, right? So yeah, some of the people that I like kind of follow or look at, like a lot of them are like math guys or accounting guys. Yeah, exactly. Numbers guys.
You guys different. Okay, here's the slight difference for me is like clearly an analytics guy. I'm more of an eye test guy. So I know there's like the numbers back it up, but there's certain points where I'm just like, in my opinion, there's no way the Diamondbacks should have been losing to the Phillies. And that's like me based on like the players. Because at the end of the day,
you mean the opposite?
The Phillies shouldn't have lost.
The Phillies should not have lost. Yeah. But like for me, like at the end of the day, that Oakland team, Billy Bean's team, didn't win it all. No, eventually. No. So you still need that one star power. But but like you said, like you still.
But the Red Sox.
It has to be a good balance, definitely.
The Red Sox started using the same method as the Oakland A's afterwards. And I think they were successful. Yeah,
they ended up winning. Right? Like for me, it's a healthy balance, right? Because like, as a Jays fan, the whole Jose Barrios situation. I don't know if you saw that. So when they play the Twins, game 2, I know we're bringing up bad memories for us.
Bad memories.
The manager pulled. I guess he
our starting pitcher
pulled off the starting pitcher,
and he was cooking.
He was cooking, and took him out 4th inning, and or 3rd or 4th inning, brought in a different pitcher in, and he gave up 2 runs. So we're like, everybody's like, pretty much
bashing
analytics and stuff. Like again, yes, I'm an eye test guy, so like I base on like I like to base it on like not vibes, but like based on like history, and like who I think, like for example, the Phillies should have beaten the Diamondbacks in my opinion. Like we thought when you had a sweep, I had it in 5. Like I thought the Phillies would have won in 5. I thought the Dodgers would have beaten the Diamondbacks.
But even the models and the metrics and stuff like that got beat by what happened, right? Yeah. Because no model or metric would have said that the Diamondbacks could do what they did. Exactly. They kind of defied the odds a little bit, big time. So a lot of money was lost.
That's where like
a lot of plus you got to look at injuries and stuff too.
Yeah. The way I look at it is like you use the analytic side to prepare for the game. Yeah. But then like say like something with a starting pitcher, if he's cooking, you know. Yeah. Let him cook. Yeah. Until he isn't, then that's where you could bring in the pre-game plan and use analytically.
The thing is like you have to forecast the full playoffs and stuff too, right? You know how many games you're gonna play, and that shoulder is like it's of the essence, right? So you want to have certain amount of rotations, certain amount of reps, get them out. Make sure you can ice that thing so you can get ready for after, right? So if you have like, I feel like with the bullpen, when you have decent players, let them kind of go in. Like the closer for the Rangers, Leclerc. Yeah. Man, that guy should be pitching way more innings. Why is he always goes in?
I guess it depends on like what their velocity is, how much their location is, which is why they're in the bullpen. Because like the Rangers in the regular season had a horrible bullpen, so no one really thought the Rangers were gonna go this far either.
Both teams, nobody.
I actually thought the Rangers personally. I thought the Rangers were gonna be good, not World Series. But I thought they were going to be good. And I didn't think the Blue Jays were going to be this bad because historically their hitting was their strong suit. Now it flipped into their pitching and defense was their strong suit.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Vladdy decides he can't hit anymore.
Yeah.
So like that's like that part. Yeah, it's always going to be a healthy debate. Like I said, I like the analytics part. And obviously being a numbers guy, I get that too.
And it works.
It works for sure. It works to a certain extent because like I like it in the fact like, for example, you have a goalie in hockey. What's the low percentage save possibility for him? It's like okay,
is he glove side?
Is he glove side low? Then yeah, like that stuff I'm all for aboard for it. But it's like that Jose Barria situation is like the guy's cooking, you gotta let him cook. At the same, but now to be fair, it worked for Arizona.
Yeah, I think game 3,
because they pulled the guy, but then it worked. So it just depends on situation because it's also like. At the end of the day, the humans are playing the game too, so it could be like something just like happens.
You
don't know. You don't expect
There's
a pitcher.
There's so many factors too, though. Is like you got to change the weighting of things, like the park factor.
Yeah.
What's how do the games get played in this park?
Yeah.
Right, being away from home, the road schedule.
You don't know if the guy's sick in the morning.
You don't know if the guy's sick, and you also don't know if he went out last night.
Yeah.
You don't know how much he partied the night before.
Exactly.
You don't know what these guys are doing on their off time and stuff, right? So there's like so much of those things that you got to kind of take into consideration. So now that I've been watching it up until this point, so now next season I'm going to be more into it. So I don't actually have a baseball team. So now...
Are you going to pick one?
I'm going to pick one right now.
Oh, okay, live on the air.
So live on the air. I'm going to pick a team. I've been thinking about it for a little bit of time. And, I have like a criteria that I normally follow. So like when I picked the Celtics, Pardeep helped me with the criteria. We had to, like, does it have a level of historic, relevance in the league? Is it a city that I want to travel to? Is there someone that in the last 5 years been relatively okay? Do they have some star power now? Blah, blah, blah. So for baseball, I had narrowed it down to either the LA Dodgers or the Boston Red Sox. Okay. And the Boston Red Sox was a default pick because I'm a Celtics and Patriots fan, and they're both in Boston. But I don't travel to Boston that often, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is like I could just keep the Red Sox in there, and historically, you're looking at a pretty decent team. Actually, there's another team, the Yankees, is in the list as well because I just went to New York.
So you're picking teams that we're gonna hate.
Yeah.
So the Yankees, I went to New York this year, and my wife and I love New York, and it's a place that we know we're probably gonna be going quite often. And Yankee Stadium and Yankees are super historic. But I feel like that's just like it's like a cheap pick, everybody Yankees, you know what I mean? But the Dodgers, I don't know. I think the Dodgers, like you're looking at their pitcher. Like, I don't know. I've watched some of their games during the season too. Traveling, it's a quick flight over, right? I was actually going to go on my birthday. I was going to watch the Dodgers versus the Giants.
Yeah.
But any opinions here?
Okay, so Red Sox are, depending on what, Yankees are going to be a money team. I know they're going to spend next year. Dodgers, it might be a good pick because they might get Shohei Ohtani. Pitching wise, Joven watches the pitching side of things, so I'll let him take care of that.
So pitching
but
wise,
before you go, Red Sox are definitely like, how the Orioles are a young, up and coming team would have a bunch. I think the Red Sox prospect pool is good.
Yeah.
From what I heard, I don't follow baseball is one of our casual sports. Like we know Blue Jays through and through, but for overall like what's happening behind the scenes or the prospect pool. But from what I heard, the Red Sox definitely have that. Now, are they going to go out and... Because they had a bad year again this year.
Yes.
So the problem is, are they going to go out and get someone big? Like, you still need at the end of the day, I still believe that you need a star power. Whereas, for the Dodgers, I'm like, lack of pitching, but if they get Shohei Ohtani, great. But the Dodgers are always going to be good. It's just their playoff woes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
historically, they got Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife and I love that movie.
Same. I love that movie too.
Movies,
For me, Dodgers is pitching injuries. Kershaw is injured a lot and doesn't perform in the playoffs, so that's why I'm like always
but
like
he's a great pitcher though.
But he's a good pitcher. And then after that, this postseason, their pitching, they were all injured, right? Like one had a
Julio Urias had a domestic
domestic case, and then one of their good pitchers from last year was coming off.
Walker Buehler was injured.
Tommy John, right? It's like one of the thing that everyone's gonna go through. Shohei Ohtani's not gonna be pitching anyways next year, so that's where I'm like, okay, a little bit question mark for the Dodgers, but otherwise they're a good team. Red
hitting
Sox
wise, Mookie and Freddie Freeman.
Red Sox, they're up and coming. I think they should probably, if I'm them, I would sign like a couple starting pitchers in free agency. That will probably really elevate them next year. And Yankees, just spend
they're
your
the
money.
Yankees. They're just random.
They're really young right now too, though, aren't they?
They're mixed.
They're mixed.
Yeah.
They're because Giancarlo's old, has a bad contract. Garrett Cole's older, but he's still a great.
He's
pitcher.
a good pitcher. Yeah.
Aaron Judge is still great, right? But
Yeah.
they're younger on certain aspect.
Yeah.
But okay, if we're gonna ask us, we probably not to be the best to ask us because we're biased and we're Blue Jays fans, so we don't want you to be.
So Yankees and Red Sox were like, screw you, basically, because they're the same division.
But yeah, no.
So we're gonna go with the Dodgers.
You going with the Dodgers?
Yeah, going Dodgers?
Yeah, no, Dodgers I think they've been consistently good. They're like the Tampa Bay Lightning of like in how they're in hockey.
Yeah.
And
they've won a decent.
Like the Chiefs, even before Mahomes type of thing, they'll always kind of be there. So yeah, I mean, I like the Dodgers pick, but
no, Dodgers are a good team. They're all three are good teams. Red Sox probably the worst right now.
Yeah,
even though Yankees a bit bad this year as well.
So
but
next
Dodgers,
time,
Dodgers
when I do
are
another
best.
episode with you guys,
yeah,
or if we do just a straight sports one,
yeah,
I'm gonna start to get all up there. You know, I gotta get my intel, and I'm gonna be the Dodgers guy. Okay.
Yeah, you be the Dodgers guy.
You guys can feature me. We talk baseball next year.
Like LA Dodgers special.
LA Dodgers.
Yeah, no, Dodgers is a good pick for sure. If you wanna look at history, if you wanna look at current success, current form, past form.
Yeah.
I don't think I've never really seen them have a bad year. Maybe they had like when I was like on the low on the baseball for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, I'm fine with the Dodgers pick.
That's a good
pick.
Yeah.
Nice.
Dodgers are the best out of three teams right now.
Yeah.
Currently, yeah.
All right, college football. You still tune into it. That one might not be your analytical sport, but maybe it is. I feel like you're going analytically everywhere.
You have to go analytically.
Yeah. But like college football, why college football more than the NFL?
Man, these guys are playing for jobs and careers. Some of them,
yeah.
Man. Like it's just, and it swings. Like there's so many more upsets, and there's like the student atmosphere environment of the stadium can sway things. Just seeing players playing at these young ages and then going on to play in the NFL, that's always fun as well. It's just when I was getting out of that depressive state in like 2012 or whatever, one of the things I did was started watching college football, and it gave me a lot of joy, and so then I kind of stuck with it. And then I find it's one of those things that after you've been watching it for 1 year, it takes a accumulation of years for you to figure out what teams are, where they are, and how they are the way they are, right? So now it's kind of like I've got a better grip of it, but I still don't follow it to the amount that I kind of should. I think. Because it can get tough sometimes, right? Like the power ranking, the top 10, top 20, changing week after week, and that kind of stuff. But it's super interesting because you have this thing where it's like, oh, freshman quarterback. Like you remember when Johnny Manziel came in? I was watching. That's when I started watching.
Yeah.
And so just sitting there and to watch a freshman quarterback come in and just change the face of the entire university, it blew my freaking mind.
Yeah.
That was insane. These guys are rock stars, man.
And then he kind of did his own thing.
and then NFL was a different story. But
and then Baker Mayfield, watching him play, Jalen Hurts, watching him play, like, Kyler, Vince Young, Reggie Bush, like Matt Leinart. Like I watched just so many players, and I got to see them play in the NFL afterwards as well. But yeah. And then sometimes just by default, I ended up kind of watching all my football on Saturdays, and I wouldn't really watch it on Sundays as much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the college thing came in.
Yeah, like college for us is like very casual. Like it was last sport we kind of got into. It's mainly also because we have to follow the NFL draft, right? So
I
so
clocked the most amount of hours of watching for sport this year probably is college football.
Okay. Yeah. And then basketball. So for whatever reason you wanted to go rival
Lakers
Laker to Celtics, but
I wasn't even a proper Lakers fan. It was one of those things where
players.
Watch Shaq, watch Kobe, and then it was like the 2000s. I'm playing basketball with my friends, moved to Surrey, went to California, bought a Kobe Bryant jersey from the Ross or whatever. So you had a Kobe Bryant O'Neal jersey.
Yeah.
It was like the team at the time, and it was just kind of cool. And then I kind of stopped watching basketball regularly. And then kind of started watching it again regularly in 2015 or 16 or something.
Yeah, because I think you had bought a Kyrie jersey.
Yeah.
And then he left. And then
But I bought the Kyrie jersey, it was a fake Kyrie jersey from like Thailand or from Southeast Asia somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, he came. He was there for a couple of years, but it was around the time when I think the first year he went, that was the year I picked the team.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So that was fun, but I got the opportunity to actually go to TD Garden. I got to watch Kyrie play. I got to watch LeBron play against Kyrie.
Was that game 1?
No, it was just like a season game.
Season game, yeah.
Paul Pierce's jersey was
wasn't
being
like you
retired.
have a Pardeep, didn't you?
Yeah, I
think
remember.
it was the first game. Huh? Was that that game that Gordon Hayward got hurt?
I think no.
Oh, no. I remember this because I think.
Oh no, they went in a February. Okay, yeah.
Fit Nation was
no,
like, okay,
I remember
for the weekend because
all I remember
to, like,
it was
TD
Jordan.
Garden,
that was trade deadline, and LeBron traded half the team.
Yeah.
And Jordan Clarkson was there, and I remember Pardeep telling me like, "Oh, Jordan Clarkson's a baller in person."
Yeah.
Okay, I remember now.
Yeah, exactly. So got to watch that. Got to see like all the historic things in that stadium and. Like Larry, like the whole Larry Bird presence and everything, and seeing some of that stuff. So
plus, you got to see the Boston Bruins side of things a little bit, right?
The
same arena.
Yeah. So I'm a Celtics fan. I've actually been kind of following, in the sense of every playoffs. I'm probably watching every game.
Yeah.
Regular season, I'm just kind of following along. I know we're off to a really hot start.
You're good. Your team's good.
But like, I think it's probably if it's a championship year, this is going to be it.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not speaking too soon because it is a longer season, so you never know what can happen. But man, that team looks good, and
the trades helped a lot for sure. The Celtics are like the Dodgers, I guess.
Exciting to watch.
Yeah,
and I got to been following Jason Tatum essentially right from the start.
So good.
That's a great player. So man.
Yeah.
On the basketball front, things are going good.
Like I'm not like a hater. Like obviously I'm a Laker fan, so I'm rooting against the Celtics, but I love Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
Right. I love Drew Holiday. Like he's one of my underrated players of the league. Same thing. I love Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but they're Clippers. I have to root against the team. But like when it comes to players, I've never been against any player. Like the whole Messi Ronaldo thing. Like I'm a fan of both.
Yeah.
Like I said it on record that my goal is Messi especially after that World Cup. But at the same time, I watched both growing up. Like I ain't gonna like be those Messi haters. Like, oh yeah, Holland should have won that Ballon d'Or because they know that Messi's gonna get an 8th and blah blah blah. Like, I've never been that guy. But like in terms of a team, I'm a team first guy because of that. Which is what's in a weird situation because I was always Kobe over LeBron, and LeBron's a Laker. But I'm a team first guy, so which means unfortunately LeBron, I need you to get more rings than Kobe.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing there. We'll wrap it there. It doesn't feel like how long we went.
How long was that?
Right now we're at 2:18.
Oh, wow.
That was
one of you guys' longest podcast.
Yeah,
for sure. It did not feel like it, that's for sure.
Did not feel that at all.
That flew by. But
awesome.
Before we close it out, advice for, first of all, let's break up into two. Kay. Advice for anyone dealing with mental health concerns that like you kind of went through with divorce, for example.
Yeah. I would say seek some help, man. Whatever type of therapist works for you, just find someone. And also, it's like you might have to find the right one. So if you try the first one and it doesn't work, don't shut the idea out completely. Go find someone else. Maybe their style will work. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different style. So definitely seek out like a counselor, a support group or something like that. If you're having drinking issues, either, you can try the Alcoholics Anonymous thing. I've seen that work for some people that have talked to me that had issues. I didn't do it myself, but that's something that you can do, or you could just seek out a counselor, an addictions counselor, and they could help. But in my opinion, I think for the mental health part, counselor. Go to your counselors or register or someone, a therapist, like before even taking SSRIs or entertaining any of those sort of medical realms. I would say. Yeah. Of course, listen to your doctor. I'm no doctor, so don't listen to what your doctor says.
Advice for people that want to, join a gym but don't have the funds to, or like, for example,
start
coaching.
Running. We don't need no funds for running. Start running. I swim in the ocean. You don't need no funds for that. You literally just get out in the ocean.
Just exercise.
But basically, just get moving with whatever you have and whatever you can do. And then sometimes even just send out a message to somebody or to a gym, explain your situation. I think there's people out there that they'll help you more than you think. And if you're like a challenge, you really want somebody's services, I'm sure they might give you a break or something like that. So just kind of see what works for you. Just don't use that as a reason to not be healthy, or don't use that as a reason to not engage in certain activities.
And then last one, advice for any coaches, because you had coaching experience, athletes in general, entrepreneur, because you're doing the Sponsor Solution stuff and stuff like that.
You got to keep learning, right? So the part about why post-secondary school is beneficial is not necessarily what you learn. Because if I had to ask both of you, the material that was held there, you guys don't really refer to it too much now. There's something else, right? But they taught you a way to think critically, how to analyze situations, even if it's baseball, right? And then break things down, right? It gave us a toolbox. If you left there and now you no longer sharpen that toolbox through your own reading, your own self-learning, your own taking courses, then you're doing a disservice to yourself, right? So you have to keep learning, right? So you have to keep improving that toolbox and then kind of going from there. So it's like I have those skills that I got from, you know, UBC, and then now it's like I continue to sharpen them through the reading or taking these endeavors, taking on new roles in different companies, trying to pivot and so forth. Because the only reason I can pivot and make these jumps from industry to industry is because I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
If I wasn't willing to learn and I wasn't willing to take courses, I wasn't willing to read, because even since I joined on in this accounting role, I think I've covered almost like 7 or 8 foundational accounting books that are part of like curriculums out there. So instead of paying someone and learning from a teacher, I just do the learning myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's critical. So if you're a coach, you're an entrepreneur, you're gonna have to do it. Especially for entrepreneurship, basically what you're doing is you're doing a self-guided MBA program, right? Because you open your business. Now you gotta learn about the finance part of it. You gotta learn about the bookkeeping, the accounting part of it, right? You gotta learn the marketing part of it, the sales part of it. Now you gotta learn about the management part of it, the operations part of it. Those are all components in an MBA program.
Yeah.
It's just that, so if you don't have a teacher, you're going to do the real life part of it, but supplement the real life part of it with a book, right? So I think there was one that I read called The Personal MBA. I found that to be very helpful. That one broke things down. And then in there, he recommended other books. Then I just kept following them.
Yeah.
So find your industry, find the main people that produce content or knowledge in that industry, take their courses, learn the way they do things, find your niche, master your niche, then open to the mainstream, and then if you want, sell out and go do something else.
Yeah.
Because now you've identified a framework that works. Idea, creation, implementation, organization, sell it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I've been lucky enough where I've already sold 2 companies essentially.
Yeah.
I sold my stake in Fit Nation, I sold my stake in Sansar. And in both companies, I never really had much of a capital investment. It was my time.
Yeah.
Right? And so that shows me that I've done it twice now. You can see that as rings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to get to 10, 12, try to start something up, create it, scale it, sell it. Like for me, the game of entrepreneurship, that's my basketball.
Okay.
Like, you know, like Kobe Bryant, like I that's how I treat it.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to keep doing this. I'm not going to retire. I want to do this to some degree when I'm 80, 90 years old, because there's just so much to learn. There's just so much to do. And it's just like you keep advancing. So, yeah, guys.
Yeah. Before we outro this off, you can face the camera on this one. You just plug your stuff. If people that tune into this and they want your advice personally, where they could reach out to you.
Yeah, so you can reach me at j.sing.johal. I believe that's my handle on Instagram. You'll see it there. You can click on my bio. There's a link to a newsletter. So I do a bi-weekly newsletter. You can follow me on that Instagram handle. You can follow sansar.solutions on Instagram as well. That's the bookkeeping and accounting company. And then with that comes the websites and everything else. But the main area to go for me is my newsletter and my Instagram handle.
All right. Jas, appreciate this.
Thank you, man.
Did not feel like whatever 2 hours it was.
Yeah, man.
We did not convince him to pick the Dodgers over the other teams. That's his decision.
That was his choice.
That was his choice. But yeah, no, we had a lot of fun. Obviously,
thank you so much for having me on here. It's great to see you guys doing this. Taking yourselves out of your comfort zone. It's not easy to be doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So I definitely applaud you guys for that. I applaud the listeners to listening and supporting this as well. I hope I was able to provide some nuggets of information that were helpful and humorous, and it wasn't so boring.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for
Thank
sure.
you. Yeah.
All his links will be in the description down below. He's willing to come back on to talk more sports this time, so we'll see how that goes.
And then also Nation Talk podcast. I've done episodes.
Yeah.
Ben and I used to do episodes. We don't do episodes anymore, but you can still go through our previous episodes. We're on YouTube. And I think he gave his handle, so you can follow through there as well.
All his Instagram, Fit Nation, will be linked in the description. If you want to check it out, please do it there.
Awesome.
And for everybody else watching, we appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.